All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Cedar Falls regular City Council meeting for Monday, May 5th. I will now call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Schultz.
Here.
Latta.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Allbaker.
Here.
Ganfield.
Here.
Chrisman. Here. Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and if willing and able, could everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. And do I have a motion to approve regular meeting of April 21st meeting minutes?
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion from council? And any of those from the public? Yes, please, come on.
For clarification.
Do they know it's meeting minutes? No.
And just to check, this is just for the minutes, approving the meeting minutes of the previous meeting. Just. All right, we'll get to public comment in a second. Glad to see you're excited, though. So we've got a motion second. Any comments tonight from the public on the meeting minutes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any agenda revisions?
Item 29 is being removed from the resolution calendar.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that item was removed by request from the developer that submitted it to be able to bring some additional information later. So, okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And quick before we jump into public forum, a couple things here. First of all, I wanted to say that I've received several messages this last week with concerns regarding a resident letter. That was rather our last committee of the whole meeting. The letter detailed concerns from a resident regarding how the South Main Sewer Infrastructure Project had been communicated to residents throughout the year, as well as significant concerns with a specific interaction that occurred more recently with staff. I am directly aware of the situation, and while I can't speak to or confirm everything that was stated in the letter, I can say that there was room for improvement in the information that was provided to residents throughout the project, and that the recent interaction referenced by the resident was not acceptable for the standards we have as a city. And I can promise that the concerns are being taken seriously by myself, this body, and staff to improve moving forward. So also wanted to make a comment. I know for one of the Courier articles that came out regarding tonight's meeting, there was a mention in there regarding the UNI funding that we would be looking to increase the funding by $2 million. Just wanted to clarify that's not what's on the agenda. It is just a contract to confirm and sign the contract for the $2 million. So in case anybody had seen that and maybe had concerns, just wanted to provide that clarification. So otherwise, we will now move to public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. If there anyone that would like to speak tonight. Just name and address, please.
Mark Nook at 2501 College Street in Cedar Falls. First of all, thank you. This probably is a good transition with what the mayor just said regarding the funding for the UNIDome. I'm here just to say thank you and to say it multiple times because it is a very big project. It's one that I know you have had a lot of discussion about and have wrestled with a great deal. It is one of the first times that the city has stepped forward to help with a project at another public entity, especially one like the University of Northern Iowa. This is a big project, and it's a project with a significant impact on this community, certainly on our university. The single biggest economic impact may well be on this community when you think about it, on this city, through the revenues that it'll generate in hotels, restaurants, some of our bars, other establishments. And that means tax dollars for the citizens. And that you have listened to that you've thought through that deeply and recognized the economic impact of the university, and in particular, the UNIDOME to this community, we greatly appreciate. And tonight, I just want to say thank you. I realize that it's agenda item 24 that's coming up a little bit later to sign that resolution. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for wrestling with that and coming to a decision that ultimately I think supports our city in a very big way and clearly will have an impact on our students and on the people that use the dome. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it at the University of Northern Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you, President Nook. And as well, a reminder, if it is an item on the agenda later tonight, we will have public comment on it at that point as well. So for items not on the agenda, please. Yes, go ahead. Just name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Greta Berghammer. I'm at It's a new address for me, 5311 Hyacinth Drive in Cedar Falls. I sent all of you an email last week inviting you to the Timeless Journeys performance, which is going to be held both on the UNI campus and at Western Home Communities. This is an intergenerational project that is sponsored in part by UNI, the Western Home, Gallagher Foundation, Guernsey Foundation, Humanities Iowa, and Martin Brothers Distributing. It pairs university theater students with seniors aging with cognitive decline and dementia to create stories based on pictures. The performance will share some of those stories, but it will also mostly talk about how impactful this cross-generational experience was for both the students and the seniors. This is the second year of our project. Some of you came and saw our performance last year. This one will be different because it's 10 different students and lots of different seniors. This year's project also, we were able to expand into Grundy Center and Jessup. So I have paper invitations for you. I can come up and give them to you, or I can hand them to somebody who's going to pass them out. Not sure.
If you'd like to hand them to our
I will do that. So
man over
anyway,
there,
thank you.
we
Hope
can
to
make
see
sure
you
to
there.
pass them out. Thank you, Ms. Berghammer. All right, anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and address, please. Excuse me.
Good evening, Rosemary Beach, Western Home Communities. I'm here to talk about restrooms. Surprise, surprise. One of the things I was wondering about is while I'm trying to get handicapped and definitely new restroom over to the town. One would do it. I just like to take one right up here and just disappear with it and put it downtown. And I see our community Main Street person is here, and I think last time I suggested maybe it could be added along with that building. I don't know how much land is around it, but if it's those restrooms are 6 by 12. And I got to thinking about the fact that we're going to have a big water park here. Now, if some of these people come, they're going to come in their swimsuits or do whatever, and having some kind of a changing area, maybe when you finally get to doing this restroom. I believe you will do it someday before I'm gone. And that maybe that could be also thought in the whole system of the thing, that we will be using those kind of things. I will also say to you that when I would take Bob to the restroom or go down to the theater area downtown, how hard it is for people with a walker. You have to go up the sidewalk with the little thing, driveway. You have to go up there to get to the level of where you are to watch whatever's going on at that stage. Then if you need to get to the restroom that is there, that they only open it up when something is happening there, you have to go clear across all of that to get to it, where now they have a money-paying station there. And then it goes clear down the hallway. And then finally, you could get to a restroom. That's a big journey when you're pushing a big thing in front of you and getting into doors and running into people. Before, sometimes he would use the one in the restaurant. It was available, but it's down a long hallway. And again, it is a job for those people who need it. And I've said before, just to look at all of you, I know that you're going to have people in your family that need being taken care for. You're going to have them no matter whatever disease you want to put it on. There's 3 big ones coming up. And living at Western Home, I run into them often. I would like to add one thing to this. Ragbri is coming. It would have been wonderful to have a nice big restroom. And if I remember right from the last Ragbri I helped with, that we get money back as a city Is that a yes from them being here? They pay you back for something. I don't know if they still do that. That's how we got the first statue down there in the park, was the $15,000 we got back from Rank Bride. Now, maybe they don't do that anymore. I don't know. But if they did, it would be a good idea to maybe put that money away and we'd build a really nice restroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beach. Name and address, please.
Rick Sharp, 1623 Burt Street, Cedar Falls. So I'm here to discuss what occurred at the April 21st Committee of the Whole meeting on the South Main Sanitary Sewer upgrade. During that meeting, Councilmember Cruz revealed he wanted to pass the cost of the septic tank hookup for a few homes onto all the residents of Cedar Falls by way of a 50-cent or $1 a month assessment fee or surcharge. His calculations show that after 10 to 20 years, that would yield a fund of around $3 million for septic tank hookups. He is asking for 15,000 plus homes to pay for 400 properties. Cruz said he doesn't think of this as a tax, but is needed because the hookup costs are a pain for the owner. I truly hope that not only the council, but the affected property owners do not support a taxpayer bailout for this. The irony of his proposal is that for previous budget setting meetings, he advocated for lower property taxes in Cedar Falls by voting against higher options, but when it comes to helping out a few properties, he has no problem passing their costs on to everyone. People in support of having all the residents of Cedar Falls contributing these hookup costs made comments such as public good, public need, public benefit, comparing it to paying for police, fire, and roads, etc. However, a property owner's septic system is not a public use. I do not have the right to go to that property owner's house and say, hey, I have the right to use your bathroom since I'm paying for part of it. Comments were made that if a septic system leaks, that affects the public as a whole, and that's why the public needs to share these costs. My response to that is, what is the current practice for those septic tanks leaking? Is that the property owner's responsibility for repairs or the public's? By passing a proposal of having everyone in the city share on this cost that only a few benefit from, where does that stop then? The city code has rules about rundown blighted properties, such as bad shingles, windows, sidings, and driveways. Do we as a public contribute so that that property owner can fix up their properties? After all, public good means attractive properties that can increase everybody's home values, not to mention to keep rodents and vandalism away from the rundown properties. What if my water or sewer line breaks on my property? Is that my responsibility to fix? Or should the public be expected to pay for my repairs? After all, those repairs are also a pain to me as an owner. What about the property owners that had septic and hooked up to the city sewer in the past when the opportunity arose? Are they entitled to a refund? Finally, where are all these 400 properties in Cedar Falls that have septic tanks located at? A quick search on the internet showed a variety of high-value homes and businesses such as Peregrine Financial, which is abandoned but they have a private septic tank, Beaver Ridge, etc. Properties that probably shouldn't need taxpayer assistance. And this councilmember and others are possibly asking for a tax assessment or fee increase on all the property owners to help those to hook up. By supporting a motion that was proposed, this kind of looks like what's happening at the state and national level where the government wants everyone to pay for things that a few or the wealthy will benefit from. I feel that the options the city presented are fair. If a property owner does not want to hook up for the system, they don't have to. If their system leaks, let them repair it at their cost as they had done in the past. Don't force them to hook up. If they want to hook up at a later date, don't put an expiration date on any of the discounts that are offered. And if some of the current septic tanks have been damaged due to the development in the area, then the city should seek cost repair from the developer, not the property owners. I ask the council that if and when this ever does come up for a vote, do not entertain or join the proposal to raise everyone's taxes or fees to benefit a few. I'm sure, or at least I hope, that the current property owners of South Main Street did not want this nor ask for this. I know for a fact that the rest of the citizens of Cedar Falls did not ask for it or want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Just name and address, please.
Good evening, Josh Wilson, Cedar Falls. We're really doing the potty theme. Rosemary, she was talking about a potty. Mr. Sharp was talking about a potty hookup, and now I want to talk about a potty mouth. As I stand before you, and Mr. Mayor, first of all, I respect your comments this evening, but they were a little too late. As I stand before you, I'm reminded of your motto, "Our citizens are our business," a slogan that sure seems to have soured over time. In a city of 40,000, it seems the only thing that is moving faster than our constituent emails into your trash bins is the rumor mill that some of our city officials have been telling citizens they have better things to do than to deal with us. Now, I don't want to assume, but no comment from the city really feels kind of like, who cares? We've elected you to not dodge our concerns, but to address them with compassion. When a grieving widow of one of our fallen firefighters speaks and is met with silence, it suggests that in these chambers, humanity is absent, and our voices are akin to the awkward silence after a bad joke. What's more alarming is that silence that greeted the firefighter's widow was designed based on a recommendation from staff not to respond to her. Then in a master class of selective hearing, our city administrator, in a move that I can only describe as mic drop diplomacy, casually informed a taxpayer that concerns were a luxury he simply didn't have time for, and he was using a few more colorful words than I did. All while our mayor and another council member looked on like a bystander at a magic show, utterly shocked, but unable to form a response. When it comes to citizens' voices not mattering, it doesn't get much clearer than that. Further proof that citizens aren't at the forefront is the outpouring of emails the mayor referenced have come into his office, unfortunately several of which have still gone unanswered. I want to read some quotes from those emails which came in from business and community leaders, all calling on the mayor to do what past mayors haven't had the courage to do, hold the bureaucracy responsible. Quote, "The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. The way our city administrator conducted himself is cancerous and has spread to the staff he's employed." End quote. Another quote, "At 88 years old, I feel more qualified both in work and life experience to tell you that nowhere else would this behavior be tolerated." This is all one quote coming here. It has become clear that our city administrator's issues are not isolated incidents. His behavior, as witnessed by me and others who have had interactions with him now, have been witnessed by some on the council. His public persona and behind-the-scenes persona are starkly different. He is unable to engage in discussions or compromise on anything. A city administrator's role should involve technical expertise, empathy, and understanding. The person in this role must be able to work with citizens and manage staff with a caring and considerate approach. Mr. Mayor, during your campaign, you promised many of us that you would be able to handle the city administrator and that he would do what you directed him to do. So either you agree with these tactics, or, as I suspect, he is the one running the city and not the duly elected mayor. And there were sadly a lot of these ones. Quote, "Just checking in to confirm you received this." Not the best constituent services. It's time for all of you to roll up your sleeves and swim against the tide down here a bit. Let's remember that sometimes being a good listener means being a good leader means you simply need to be a good listener. We deserve responses to our emails, timely ones at that, and we are owed solutions that show that we matter, not just behind the scenes, we're handling it. After all, if citizens really are your business, then I believe it's high time you reinvest in some open communication, respect, transparency, and unfortunately I have to say this, but basic human decency. I could go on for a lot longer, but I'm very confident that the only people listening to me are out there in public television land, and it's also Cinco de Mayo. So, in the words of His Excellency, Mr. Gaines, I have better shit to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Just name and address, please.
Abe Grodehouse, Homeway Drive, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Mayor, council members, I was watching our last committee meeting and heard the comments that were made. I was one of those citizens who sent an email to you. It was disturbing to hear how our administrator spoke to a citizen, but what's more disturbing is the action that has not been taken. I know I've spoken to almost all of you, and I think you all have higher standards than what we have seen. Mr. Mayor, you responded to me and said, "This matter is being handled privately. Like any organization, we should take care of these things internally." I would push back on that and say the leaders of our city should be held to a higher standard. I know tonight you're considering giving funds to UNI. I'm a proud alumni of UNI. I see Dr. Nook here tonight. I'm guessing if he spoke to citizens this way, to college students, he would be held to a different standard. The Board of Regents would not stand for that kind of communication. I know if I spoke to you tonight the way Mr. Gaines was speaking to people, you would probably have Mr. Howard direct me to leave. You wouldn't stand for that. I've seen you do it a couple times, Mr. Mayor. You said, we're not going to have that in this council chamber, and I respect that. You have to keep order. You have to keep decency. So why does that standard change when it's not here in council meeting, when it's behind closed doors. And I've heard this, we need to go to executive session. It has to be done behind closed doors. The comments made were public. It's a publicly funded city, and this is our leader of our city, our highest paid city employee. There should be a public statement made on this. You should take public action when these things come before the public. I've heard it said before, I think it applies here. Culture is what we tolerate, not what we expect. We can say we expect a lot of things. We expect people to treat you right. We expect responses. We expect courtesy. It's great to have expectations. I recently become a father. I have expectations, but they don't always get met. But what are we going to tolerate? What are we going to tolerate for our city? Are we going to tolerate this kind of behavior? Culture is important. It trickles down. We hear this from developers trying to make progress in our city, that working with our city can be almost impossible sometimes because of this culture. Mr. Mayor, council members, will we tolerate this in our city? This matter was publicly funded city, our administrator. He's a public figure. Will you take public action on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Just name and address, please.
Kim Jensen Jordan, 2018 Minnetonka Drive. And disappointment. Just looking through the years of being a business owner for 25 to 27 years and looking in this room and seeing 4 people that I have personally helped, and with landscaping and helping the public, and this month alone being a business where you would work 7 days a week and you would have the vision of how the tree would be placed properly within the property that you were setting it. You'd be looking at a blueprint. You would be laying it out so that we were setting us up for success. That's what I'm seeing when I look at things that we've got in front of us, and it's total, utter disappointment. It's a lack of care on humanity when we have unelected officials able to sit on boards, create boards that are not set with a proper general ledger account, placing funds into an inappropriate site, yet we put the new housing account together. The one I'm referring to is the Foundation for Health. And looking at that, we have unelected officials that sit within it. They review what the committee is looking at, but the committee is directed by what the unappointed official is looking at with the budgets that are available. The monies are growing interest. The interest is supposed to be going back and funneling through to help each individual that's living within this community. It's public safety, it's points of service, access point, response time, duty to surrounding communities, duty to the new people coming in that are going to be using our recreational facility that we would love to create. And yet, through our elementaries, our junior highs, we're not setting those children up to have the proper steps to get to use a lifelong skill of a beautiful riverfront that we're actually able to have within our community. That's one of our amenities. So when we look at the things that make us a family-owned business, 25 years of service, 40,000 people, and we have the same conflict of interest, we don't look beyond, we don't have a vision that on 23rd Street, which I mentioned before, you're putting a median in there. We need to set it up to have a wider area already, because the plan is we're going to grow. If we put cement in place impeding pedestrian, it's not access points. It's actually adding to danger. And not funding and not protecting our own is probably the ultimate. We have a property, we have a duty, and we have people that have been appointed to make sure that those monies get administered there. There should be no conflict of interest sitting on a board of legacy. It should be protecting the house with basic updates and maintenance. We're looking at what we're going to be providing through the university, but we're going to need to have competition. And eliminating competition in our area is not a setup for future success either. So again, just asking that we take pause in properties that we already own, do not sell them off, remove the people that are not allowing the growth and maintenance to go to the site where the feet come through. We shouldn't lose a campus school that is 2 votes that the public has. And property owners right now, our property went up $47,000 with very minimal updates. If we're depreciating out building, then we're not picking up the cost. The voices of people picking up the extra cost need to be heard. Taxation and no representation is a mainstay in this community. And it's very important that if we have a business and only 4 people are coming through it, how many of us are sitting here right now that are Mercy One Sartori patients? When I started getting interested in helping friends that worked within that organization and trying to advocate for a voice so that we could grow a college of nursing, have generational growth, and have voices, I was like, I'm all in because this matters.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen-Jordan. Anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, thank you, everyone. Seeing none, we'll move to staff updates. Staff, do we have any updates? I don't believe we had anything. Unless anyone has anything exciting to say. Okay. Special order of business. We'll move to item number 2, public hearing on proposed Arbors 6th urban renewal plan for a proposed urban renewal area in the city of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Do you have a motion to receive and file approved publication notice of hearing?
So moved.
Motion seconded. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
Communication has been placed in front of council tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for staff comments tonight, we have Shane Graham. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. Back at its April 7th meeting, City Council set the public hearing for the proposed urban renewal plan for the Arbors 6th. This is being developed to help promote new residential development within the next phase of development of the Arbors residential subdivision. The proposed Arbors 6th edition will create 21 new residential lots, and the primary goal of this plan is to stimulate through public involvement and commitment, private investment in new residential development within the urban renewal area. Part of the legal requirements of creating a new urban renewal plan is to notify the local taxing entities, which is Blackhawk County and the Cedar Falls School District. We did hold a consultation meeting with those entities on April 16th, of which the minutes from that consultation meeting are in the City Council packet. Another requirement is to have the Planning and Zoning Commission review the comprehensive plan, future land use map, to conform that the plan is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. That did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting on April 23rd, where the Planning and Zoning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of the plan to the City Council. So tonight is the public hearing then on the creation of the new urban renewal plan, and I'm available for any questions.
Any clarifying questions from council at this time? All right, thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
And we'll now open up to public comment for this item. Do we have anyone from the public that would wish to speak tonight? Just name and address, please.
Craig Fairbanks, 405 Spruce Hills Drive. I come with more questions than I have comments. I kind of wonder how we get to this point. How did we decide that this was the best route to go? I'm not against, certainly not against the developer. I'd like to see more development. But why have we chosen to subsidize development? Why is everything from this point forward going to be an urban renewal project? When will the citizens get reimbursed for the actions that we take with these types of things? This particular plan looks like it's $20,038 before the city will see a dime. And will that money go to the general fund, or will that money go to a TIF? it should be coming to the general fund. How does any of this make housing more affordable? Is there going to be a set limit on what they can charge for lots? Based on the housing study that we did, that we rigorously went over in the Housing Commission, there's many other things that have not even been considered. This is the only one. Where did this come from? Was this hashed out behind with some task force that no one has knowledge about, no one has any input to? How did these things come to fruition? It's just not transparent. At the end of the day, the one who really suffers, and forget about all the technicalities, the one who really suffers is our citizens. We just went through a budget process where we've seen 40% increase in values over the last short few years. And if you haven't looked at your tax bill, you should. Just look at your lot valuation alone. Most of them are 50% in the last year and a half. This affects the citizens. So we're giving out money to private entities when there are a lot of other ways to make housing more affordable. We're just not trying. I'm not sure why we bothered with a housing study. Answers?
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Shane, could you come back up quick and answer? Just had a question here on the time frame when that TIF will expire, what the period is for this, and then I can talk to some of the where that money goes.
Yeah, per state code, we're only eligible to reimburse for 10 years. Residential TIF only lasts for 10 years. Going back in the history of this goes back several years from the housing needs assessment that the City Council adopted, I think in 2023. That indicated a shortage of housing units, and one of the recommendations from that housing needs assessment was to use residential incentives such as TIF and urban revitalization. So that's where staff started working with council. We had several public meetings going back over a year ago, several work sessions that were open to the public, which ultimately led to a council work session in October, where council gave staff the directive to move forward with this new incentive guideline. So I feel like it's been transparent. If the resident would like to contact me and sit down with me, I'd be more than happy to. I've already held numerous discussions with residents and developers about this new program. So yeah, if anyone would like to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to discuss the plan.
Thank you, Shane. And under my understanding, after that 10-year TIF expires, that money is all going to the general fund. It's taxed like any other property.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then open for any council discussion. Or excuse me, I will close the public hearing and look for a motion, resolution, determining the area of the city to be an economic development area, and that the rehabilitation, conservation, redevelopment, development, or a combination thereof of such area is necessary in the interest of the public health, safety, or welfare of the residents of the city, designating such area as appropriate for urban renewal projects, and adopting the Arbors 6th Urban Renewal Plan.
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded and open for council discussion. All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 3, public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development with Midwest Development Code. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So moved. Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
Written communication has been placed in front of council tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for staff comments, again, we've got Shane Graham. Thank you, Shane.
Mayor. So this is the applicable development agreement then with the developer of the Arbors 6th. Again, what this development agreement now spells out what the developer will do and then what the city will do as well. So for this project. Again, they're going to create 21 new lots. The city will then reimburse up to 50% of the public infrastructure costs. Again, that's spelled out by state code, the limitation of what the city can reimburse for. It is for only the public improvements that the city will own. So all of that is spelled out in the development agreement. And then again, this is only for 10 years. Once they start collecting tax increment from that district, they get reimbursed for a period of 10 years. And then after that, as you mentioned, Mayor, all the money gets back into the general fund. So if you have any questions on this, I'll be happy to answer them.
And a portion of that is for low to moderate income housing specifically, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thanks, Shane. Any clarifying questions from council?
Shane, I know several of these lots on Fernwood in particular, multifamily, that is going to continue to be the intent furthering down that road or no?
Yes, I believe so. I think they had a plan that showed some multifamily, multi-residential on the west side of that. I don't believe they've changed that since that last approval.
Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions from council? All right, seeing none, we'll open it up to public comments. Is there anyone that would like to publicly comment on this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a resolution approving an agreement for private development with Midwest Development Co.
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and any council discussion?
Mr.
Right.
Mayor,
Yeah.
if I may, I just, Mr. Graham, if you wouldn't mind clarifying the distance that I measured on this development. I don't have an exact map with the lot lines in there, but is it going to be about the same block sizes as the neighboring developments?
You're talking about the actual lot, the sizes of the lots?
The block perimeter specifically. Because measuring the existing lots to the north, it's larger than the ordinance we plan to put into place with the second reading tonight. So I'm just wondering, how does that impact it? If I calculate it correctly, it's roughly 2,800 perimeter for the existing neighboring lots.
I guess I didn't
Block
calculate
size.
what the perimeter distance is, but yeah, the 6th edition, 7th edition, 8th edition were all preliminary platted years ago with the road going straight over to the west to, I think, Fernwood Drive. And again, the street layouts and everything hasn't changed since the preliminary plat that was approved in 2014, I believe.
Would you be able to educate me on what would that look like then if we change the ordinance in 2 weeks? Does this come back to us again for redevelopment because that'll be a disallowed perimeter?
I guess I would see, I'm not sure I don't have much knowledge on that ordinance.
So you have to work with approved preliminary plats, and as long as they stay active per the subdivision code for a 2-year period if they're final plats, then we wouldn't have an issue.
So they'd be allowed to develop, but new plans would have to
Correct.
restrict to that
Yes.
2,200
Yep.
that we're talking
Good
about later.
clarification. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion, questions from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 4, a public hearing to consider entering into an agreement for private development with D Squared 2 LLC. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication?
So move.
Motion seconded. And Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And again, for staff
Mr. Mayor,
comments.
point of order.
Yeah.
We didn't vote on the receive and file.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, thank you for that.
No problem.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Again, we've got Shane Graham for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda tonight is a agreement for private development with D Squared 2 LLC. They own the property at 402 and 406 Main Street. They are planning to do a renovation project of that property, which will include the renovation and build-out of 2 brand-new residential apartment units on the second floor, and then exterior improvements on the main exterior part, including new glass and other enhancement and to elevate the building's overall aesthetic and curb appeal. The owner is estimating that the project will cost approximately $300 or $300,000 for the renovation and for both the interior and exterior. So again, with the development agreement, it's contemplating a 10-year tax rebate on the increased valuation, the increased tax increment of the project, so the building has a current value. That tax doesn't get affected. It's just on the increased valuation that this project creates.
Thanks, Shane. Any clarifying questions, Mr. Graham, at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And any public comments on this item tonight? All All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and we'll look for a motion, for resolution approving an agreement for private development with D2 LLC.
Motion. So moved. Or second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion carries. Move to item number 5, a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 26, zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to swimming pool regulations. We have a motion to receive and file approved publication.
Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for staff comments, we've got Chris Seavey. Thank you, Chris.
Of course. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss this code amendment regarding our swimming pool regulations. Just a second. So, zoning regulations for pools usually include where a pool can go, what setbacks apply, how big it can be, and lastly, there's typically a fence or barrier requirement that's spelled out. Pools can be an attractive nuisance and potentially a safety hazard for young children, which is why they're typically regulated in zoning and building codes. The purpose of the fence or barrier standards is to prevent unintended use or entry into pools by young children in the neighborhood without adult supervision. It should be noted that this barrier requirement is a state code requirement, so we are required to have it in our code. Why are we considering an update to the ordinance? First of all, we received an application for zoning code text amendment from Jason Collar at Pool Tech, which is a pool contractor. He has a client in Cedar Falls who would like a pool installed. This client recently installed a 4-foot fence around their rear yard, and our current ordinance requires a 5-foot fence to be installed to secure the perimeter around the swimming pool. The amendment Mr. Collar is advocating would provide an exception to the 5-foot fence barrier requirement, provided a powered pool cover is properly installed, which meets American Society for Testing of Materials, or ASTM for short, safety standards. The pool covers that meet these standards are durable enough to walk on and meet industry safety standards for the method of opening and closing the cover. Staff consulted with the building official who is familiar with these safety standards and finds this exception to the fence requirement acceptable. If council is curious about precedent, this contractor actually has successfully applied for similar code changes in other jurisdictions in Iowa. Aside from the application submitted to the city, another reason for this update is that city staff finds that several aspects of the current zoning regulations for swimming pools are, to put it lightly, not reasonable or not consistent with standards in the building code and have caused conflicts between neighbors. So some examples of these issues are that the code is located in an obscure part of the code. There's no differentiation between kiddie pools and larger standard swimming pools. They can encroach, currently, under the current code, can encroach the required side yard setback. And it can be 2 feet from a lot line, which has created some issues. We don't actually define whether that setback is to the pool's edge or to the pool deck or the deck around the pool. We have a requirement that it be 8 feet from any structure, so that can preclude things like cabanas and things like that that you might want close to a pool. It also does not address double fronting lots. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Aside from the staff researched standards required by several other jurisdictions and standards required by insurance companies to gauge how our current ordinance compares. and get an idea for what amendments could be considered. For instance, a 4-foot fence requirement is more common among jurisdictions in Iowa than a 5-foot fence requirement. So insurance companies typically require a minimum 4-foot fence as well, but allow and or prefer a pool cover in lieu of the fence. In addition, staff found no other jurisdiction had a 2-foot setback requirement for pools. Most jurisdictions required at least 10 feet. If you look up on the screen, you can see the current and proposed standards, and I'll go over them real quick. Barrier requirement, currently we require a 5-foot fence. We're proposing a 4-foot fence or the ASTM standard automatic pool cover. A self-closing and self-latching gate requirement is not in our current code, but is proposed here. A change of the setback from 2 feet to 5 feet to the pool deck, 10 feet to the pool's edge. So we're defining that a little bit more here. Can it encroach the side yard setback? Currently, yes, but in the proposed code, we'd say it cannot encroach the side yard setback. Does it apply to all pools, regardless of its size or capacity? It is unclear in our code. At least it could be interpreted to include all pools, regardless of whether it's a kiddie pool. So we're saying only pools with a depth capacity of more than 24 inches, these standards apply. So does it apply to spas and hot tubs? Also unclear in our current code. We would say, no, these standards don't apply as long as they have a lid that is closed when not in use, just to be somewhat reasonable about that. And does it address cases with double fronting lots? Currently, no. The proposed code does address that, at least for rear yards that are fronting arterial streets. And that's an important piece I'll get into. So just for illustrative purposes, to let you know how this applies, up on the screen is a graphic showing a typical lot to help understand code definitions that we're using in the proposed ordinance. On the left-hand side is the street. Then you have the front yard bordering the street. And on the right-hand side is the rear yard. Pools can be in the rear yard. So that's not a problem. They can also be in the side yard, technically, but not in the required side yard. So this lot probably wouldn't work for somebody, but there are lots in Cedar Falls that are much wider than your typical lot, and we don't necessarily care to restrict someone from being able to utilize that part of their land. Lastly, of course, no pools are allowed in the front yard. So we can talk real quick about double frontage. These are lots in our code when we talk about double fronting lots. They're lots where the front and rear yards both front on a street. The code currently treats each frontage as front yards. Each one would be a front yard, regardless of what street is on. This is for good reason, because there are some neighborhood expectations of what a neighborhood local street frontage should or should not have. Considering this issue in relation to pools, staff found no reason to disallow pools in rear yards that front on arterial streets. Typically, arterial streets are bordered entirely by rear yards, so streets like Hudson or Green Hill, things like that, that have that fronting on those streets. So there are no driveways, no mailboxes, things like that. No one's looking out their front window and seeing these rear yards, so to speak. But on local streets, staff proposes to continue to treat those as front yards, as is the current practice. So the example up on the screen with rear yards fronting on Hudson, the current code does not allow pools to go in there, but the proposed code would allow for pools in rear yards that front on arterial streets. We can certainly discuss this further if you have any questions. We'll talk real quick about an exceptional case that came to staff's attention just recently. Up on the screen is a case where the orange on the screen is a 30-foot drainage easement, specifically designed and set aside for overland flow for stormwater detention. The city does not allow structures or fences to go in these easements, and there's not really a practical way for this homeowner to meet the fence requirement in order to have a pool in the first place. This is certainly a case where the pool cover can be an important barrier option, I should say, worth providing for in our code. You'll notice in the packet we provided 2 code amendments, amendment options, I should say, for council to consider. Both options contain the placement and setback provisions I've talked about. The primary proposal, or option 1, is to allow a pool cover to meet the barrier requirement in lieu of a fence. And option 2 is just an alternative in case option 1 fails. Option 2 contains all of the same updates staff is proposing or finds valuable, but just does not allow a pool cover to meet the barrier requirement. So with that, just to let you know what the Planning and Zoning Commission said about this, they approved of either option. On a vote of 5-2, we're okay with option 1, and on a vote of 7-0, we're okay with option 2. There might be a little bit of nuance about the discussions there and what that means. We can talk about that if you have any questions. If council does not approve option 1, P&Z's review of option 2 allows for that to be considered without the case having to be reconsidered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, in other words, since option 1 is what the applicant applied for, just wanted to let you know, a motion for the primary proposal, or option 1, should be entertained first. And you can let me know if you have any questions. I'll turn it back to council.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stevie. Any clarifying questions from council at this point? Yeah, Councilor.
So with the option 2, what would be the height of the fence requirement? 4 foot or 5 foot?
4 foot. We're proposing the exact same standards in both of them. The only difference between the two is the pool cover. For option 1, pool cover can be substituted in lieu of a fence. Option 2 would say there's no alternative. You have to have a fence regardless. Does that make sense?
It does. So on the pool cover, what's the mechanism that closes that? When it senses no one's there?
No.
That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. But, so that'd be my concern with the cover, is it's very human dependent, where at least when the fence is up, it's up. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Any other clarifying questions? Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation, Chris. So the fence, is there a requirement on where it's located from the pool? Like that example that you showed where they aren't able to have a fence, can they not put the fence closer up to the pool?
They can.
Okay.
They absolutely can. So there could be some design option there, but I understand if people don't want to cut off the rest of their yard.
Right.
You know, in that case, I think that's kind of the main concern, is if you put a fence around the pool and it's, you know, how much of their yard does the family actually have access to?
Sure.
But, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other clarifying questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris, thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
Can you quickly address the double fronting lot? Because my understanding was when you have a post office address, that becomes the front of the house.
Correct. It is just a matter of code definitions. The way our code currently defines it and treats double fronting lots is we treat the same regulations on one side as we do on the other. If it fronts on 2 streets, we treat them as both
So
as
then
front yards.
it'd have a lesser required setback on the, what would be conceptually the back of the lot, even though it's on the arterial.
Right.
So it gives them more leeway.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So on option 1, the automated pool cover and no fence is basically what you could do.
Correct. I think in most cases that people have this, if they can have a fence as well, they'll have.
Well, I understand.
That's,
I'm just
but yes,
clarifying.
that is correct.
Okay. When I think about a fence, whether it's 4 foot, 5 foot, whatever, over the years of traveling, friends and acquaintances like to jump the fence to get into a hotel swimming pool. That's always the fun thing to do. So whether we put any requirement for a fence, I think the better option is the automated cover that supports elephants apparently or something. I don't know if that was a tongue-in-cheek, but most humans, I guess. So I'm very much in support of option A. The other component of a
Just
fence.
check quick before we get too deep. We are just on clarifying questions, and we'll come back for discussion.
Okay.
We're going to go into clarifying question or discussion?
I'll wait and do it.
Okay, we'll jump back. All right, any other clarifying questions from council? All right, thank you, Chris.
Oh, and just so you know, I think the applicant is here, so if there's time to give to him, so.
Perfect. All right, well, with that, we'll open it up to public comment. If anyone from the public would like to come speak tonight. Just name, please.
Okay, Kim Jensen Jordan. Chemical applicators licenses. Is that going to be something that we require homeowners to
Ms.
have?
Jensen, this is just relating to pool covers, so it won't
Okay.
be covering anything else related to pools other
Okay,
than just
and
the
not
covers.
how the water is being discharged? and
Correct.
the
Yep, just the
sanitary
fencing
water.
and those
Okay,
regulations.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Just name and address, please.
All right, Ryan Borgward, 4426 Wynwood Drive, Cedar Falls. So I have one of these unique situations where just with the easements, it precludes us from having a fence. So of course I looked into other options of how can this be accomplished safely. And so there's a lot of good dialogue at the P&Z committee meeting about the safety of these, efficacy, you know, and you know, the cost involved of installing these. So my argument was if somebody's going to spend the $20,000 or whatever to install one of these, they're going to make sure it's locked because they're doing it for safety, not just spending that money for fun. And there's never been a drowning in a pool with a lockable cover. The Academy of American Pediatricians support this lockable cover over a fence. So there's just a lot of research and data to support the safety and efficacy of it. And also with trends like this, you want to be first, but you don't want to be last. But a lot of the other major cities, communities in our state, Iowa City, Coralville, Des Moines, Sioux City, they all have this, you know, approved in their code that a lockable cover can be in lieu of a fence. And so just other, you know, comments, fence can be left open. You know, who's going to say that the gate's always shut? Kids can hop fences. Also, when you have gatherings, you know, and the fence just surrounds the entire backyard, you know, there's kids playing in the backyard and they can, you know, walk over that pool just as easily. But if there's a lockable cover there, that obviously provides a safety, you know, mechanism there. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, too. And anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back, or excuse me, look for a motion to pass an ordinance amending Chapter 26, zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to swimming pool regulations upon its first consideration. And again, this will be for the first option. We will vote on this one. If the group, if you're in the position of wanting to go with the second option, I would just vote no to this, and then if this one does not pass, we will come back to that second vote. Or if this one passes, we will exempt the second one. So we have a motion for item E, pass an ordinance amending Chapter 26, zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to swimming pools upon its first consideration.
Motion to approve 5E.
Second.
Motion seconded and open for council discussion. Yep, go ahead.
Just the one comment I was going to bring up was that with the option to not have a fence, you would help the communities where their HOAs don't allow any fencing for kennels or pools or anything such as that. So this option one would give our citizens much better choices for pools. So very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep.
And I'm in agreement with the logic if the covers are actually safer. I think if you are going to spend the money to put it in, you're going to make sure it's closed, not just for safety and liability reasons, but to keep debris out of it and things like that. Whereas a fence, a gate can be open, easy enough to jump 4 or 5 feet, quite frankly. And so I think the safety cover and allowing that option is a great option. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And just make sure I understand that this is just for qualifying covers that would meet the appropriate certifications.
Right.
To qualify, yep. So if you cover it with a tarp, not going to count.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
I actually did have a chance to review that study from the American Academy of Pediatrics that really does endorse this type of a situation. So, I mean, I think this is a no-brainer. I think it's probably a safer option than even a fence may be. 4 foot, 5 foot, doesn't really matter. And I think the point's well taken. If you're going to spend the amount of money to do this, I think it's more than just an aesthetic thing. I think there's a safety piece involved with this. There's probably a maintenance and cost associated with being able to keep that pool covered as well. So, I mean, I don't see any issue with this at all. Fully endorse it.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah, I don't think we need to beat the point here, but yeah, a cover keeps everybody out, including those littles that live in the house. And if you're choosing between a costly cover or a costly fence, and you say, I have to put in the fence by code, I'm in favor of removing that and allowing the exception.
Thank you, Counselor.
An elephant can stand on it.
Win-win. Thanks for bringing the idea.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I'm with Gil. I struggle on, it's the human error part. And I know human error can be anywhere, but like, you know, as a parent, 2 things that scared me to death were like parking lots and people zooming around in cars and water and my kids drowning. So I understand that it's safe as long as it's covered. And I understand that in most instances, people would be diligent on that. But what about the times where you're just having such a great time in the sun and you just go in and take a nap and you don't cover your pool? That's the problem I have with it, because it's not, there's that human error part. So anyway, I understand Gil's struggle, because I also, and I think I watched the the planning and zoning, and I think that was some of the concern there. But anyway, I appreciate the council's conversation.
Thank you, Counselor. Yep.
I was to say, it's worth noting, it's not requiring anything to change here. This is just providing for an exception. So the same dangers that are out there for the public, just mind who could access your pool and take care of it safely. I don't want anybody getting hurt.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion, questions, comments from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
Five voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Thank you, everyone, public that came to speak on this tonight. We'll now move to item number 6, a public hearing on the proposed amendments to the city's FY25 budget. Do we have a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Madam Clerk, any written communications?
I have no written communications, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And for staff comments, we have Lisa Roding. Thank you, Lisa.
Yes, this public hearing is for the fiscal year 2025 budget amendments. This is our first and only budget amendment for this year. If you remember, the current budget was passed last April, so it's been over a year, so budget amendments are usually required. This budget amendment you have before you is due to timing of capital projects and participation in grant programs. Also included in this amendment is the line item adjustments for the various departments and divisions. There are increases on this notice to 8 of the 9 program areas, and these increases are underspent line items as well as additional revenues such as city taxes, intergovernmental grant revenues, charges for services, special assessments, additional miscellaneous revenues, and other financing source revenues, as well as cash reserves. This will be processed as the same with the normal budget. We will file this with the county auditor by the May 31st deadline.
Okay. Any clarifying questions from council? Seeing none. Thank you, Lisa. We will now move to public comment if anyone would like to speak on this item publicly tonight. All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and look for a motion, resolution approving and adopting amendments to the city's FY25 budget.
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council? Seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 7, hearing on the complaint issued to Bati 313 LLC, DBA Posh Smoke and Vape, 6322 University Avenue, Suite L, for first tobacco violation. I believe for this item tonight we have oral comments. If anybody, just the individual that is related to this would like to come and speak tonight.
Mr. Mayor, as of about 50 minutes ago, I received a signed acknowledgement and settlement agreement, so a hearing will not be necessary this evening.
All right, is there anything we need to do to?
Not a thing.
All right, well, we will just move on to item number 8 then. Item number 8, proposed hearing on a proposed resolution adopting and levying the final schedule of assessments for the 2024 Sidewalk Assessment Project, Zone 6. One quick update on this item. We did have one individual pay for theirs after the time of publishing, so that will be removed. That's been removed from the total amount for that. So do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Or a motion to consider? Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Sorry, just what are we approving?
One sec here. Actually, I'm looking at my page here.
Feels. Vibes.
Am I missing? Pull up the agenda. My page might actually be missing a part of the printout here.
I didn't see a separate line for the. See the assessment. Right, I did see the assessment, but I didn't see the proof of publication or anything on that one.
So we're missing the motion to receive and file proof of publication.
There's no publication.
Okay, for this, we just jump straight to staff comments. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, it's similar
Yeah.
to the last one.
Yeah.
Anyone affected could speak to the assessment.
Okay, so we'll just have the respondent comments. All right, so we will then have this open to staff comments. We've got David Wicke, I believe. Thank you, Mr. Wicke.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This public hearing is being held to present the final schedule of assessment for the 2024 Sidewalk Assessment Project, Zone 6. The Sidewalk Assessment Program divides the city into 10 distinct zones. For the 2024 assessment, the focus was on Zone 6, where deficient sidewalks were identified, marked, and replaced. Property owners received notices in the spring and fall of 2023, and again in the spring of 2024. These notifications outline the timeframes in which property owners were expected to complete their repairs before the city's contractor proceeded with the work. For those who opted for the city's contractor to perform the work, a bill was generated and sent to those property owners, allowing a 30-day payment period. If the bill was not settled within those 30 days, then it will be forwarded to the county, and the cost of the repairs be included on the property owner's tax bill as an assessment. This assessment can be paid over a 5-year period. Included in your packet is the final schedule of assessments, with the properties being assessed highlighted in yellow, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wicke. Any clarifying questions for Mr. Wicke from council?
Can we know, Mr. Mayor, can we know which one was settled? It's no longer in there, or is it, which line item?
It was for 2208 Crescent Street.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other clarifying questions from council for Mr. Wicke? Seeing none, we'll move to respondent comments. So if anyone listed in this would like to come and speak tonight on this item, please speak now. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion, resolution adopting and levying the final schedule of assessments for the 2024 Sidewalk Assessment Project, Zone 6.
So move. Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Move to old business. Item number 9, pass ordinance number 3106, amending the boundaries for wards and precincts within the city of Cedar Falls to incorporate recently annexed territory upon its third and final consideration. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion seconded. And any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? All right. Also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 10, pass ordinance number 3107, designating the Cedar Falls Historic Core Urban Revitalization Plan of the City of Cedar Falls, Iowa upon this third and final consideration. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 11, pass ordinance number 3108, amending Chapter 19, Article 8, Major Thoroughfare Plan of the Code of Ordinances upon its second consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Item number 12, pass ordinance number 3109, amending Chapter 20, subdivisions of the Code of Ordinances to update and establish definitions and regulations related to street connectivity upon its second consideration. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
If I may, I'd like to, considering some of the other comments that we've received from the public, as well as some consideration I'd done after our last reading, the block perimeter, I think, is a little bit more restrictive than most of our comparative analysis cities. And in fact, some of the urban revite zones that we just approved tonight would be not allowed if they would come in a year's time, and I think those are perfectly acceptable. I'd like to, even though it risks setting it back to the first reading, I would like to make an official motion to remove that block perimeter of 2,200 feet. Hearing that we don't have to send this back to planning and zoning because it's just that ordinance change, I think that that's less damaging than sending back the other one. So, official motion to remove the max perimeter length of 2,200 feet.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Councilors, motion second and open for discussion on the amendment to look at removing the block perimeter requirement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I brought this up last meeting, and now we have a page from the packet. If we could put page 15 on the screen, it would be a good example. I don't know if that can be done from a previous item number 2. What it's showing, if we can't get it up there, it shows the Arbors 6th edition getting approval for a block size that is much bigger than the 2,200 square feet. And I know they mentioned that something's been platted already. We can continue doing so. But I went on Beacon Snyder and took a view of our community around this area, and Viking Hills and some of these other subdivisions that I'm not sure what the names of them are all, but many of them, if not all of these blocks, would have had to had multiple cross streets put in there, costing the developer 20, 30 lots, like in Viking Hills, maybe not 20, but at least 10 or 12 lots. And I think we need to look at this a little bit closer, that it's more detrimental to developers than what we think it is. You're going to have more streets, more concrete to pour, more snow plowing to do, and the developer's going to have less lots to spread out the cost of developing that subdivision in that area. I wish we could pull up page 15, but apparently not.
See if Denny can get it up while we're talking.
But it's difficult to maybe not visualize this sort of a schematic here, but it's, I did bring some, I can pass them down. You want to look at this?
Yeah, if you got them quick, go ahead,
Yeah.
while we're talking. While I was doing that, and you mind if I open up to more discussion while pulling it out?
So to Dustin's, to a certain new measurement or open-ended?
Right, I'd thought about that as well, because like Quail Ridge, for example, the block perimeter there is somewhere near 6,000 feet, and that's kind of one of the concern areas, right? The accessibility of public safety vehicles and such, so.
Right.
I'm open to that, but my motion was just to remove that max restriction for now. So let's try this new thoroughfare plan and see if it gives us a little more beneficial development. The concern with that, even at the Arbors, it would require another street going right through the middle unless there was an exception granted. So to Councilman Cruz's point, I think that's a lot more cost for the developer. And in some regards, if you bought land thinking, hey, I should be able to put this many lots on it, and now I've got to reduce that by X margin, it's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do with housing development in town. So the other parts of this are pretty good. Ms. Howard gave a good presentation and the rationale for it and the exclusion process, but I think removing that 2,200 feet without a cap, just removing the max perimeter for now, would be my intention.
I'd be more maybe interested in knowing what the next cap would be and not just open-ended. And if I was a developer and I bought land and I didn't know what my requirements were, shame on me.
No.
So.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now that everyone has this schematic in front of them, you can see Hudson Road coming down towards the right-hand side there. Viking Hills has very long lots. Other subdivisions have even longer still lots. And I don't know that there's been any problems in these communities. They're all laid out in such a way that the police and fire can access everything really well. I mean, the component that's brought up in here is having the stub street to go into the neighboring community, or neighboring future subdivision. But on the left side, I put a yellow mark there, which is the approved Amber Valley Road extension, which will mimic the blocks right above it. And those are 2,500 square feet, or excuse me, 2,500 perimeter, roughly. I think we need to consider this a little more closely, removing this component for now, and then address Councilor Schultz's concern about what is the maximum. Should be 10,000 or some number. I can appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
I would disagree. I think that neighborhoods have struggled with this. I think we had some examples of where, kids were struggling to get to school, or, we have kids who, they live on one street, their friend lives a block over, and they have to go all the way around this huge block just to get over to their friend's house. I mean, no offense, Chris, but he's got a great neighborhood for that as an example. I know we looked at several others in other parts of town, and I understand that we talk a lot about affordable housing, and you mentioned some of the reasons why this could potentially affect housing costs, but I hope that our developers are, now that this is coming into play, if they have a pre-existing plan, as mentioned, this won't be affected, but if they're designing new neighborhoods, then this is something that they're going to keep in mind when they're purchasing these properties, when they're creating these lots. They want neighborhoods that are connected. We've heard that from our residents. We want better connectivities to the things that people want to use, which includes being able to access their neighbors. So these streets provide that community, but also it's a safety feature. We want our emergency vehicles to get to people as quickly as they can. And if they have to go all the way around these huge blocks, especially if there's no cap on it, but I think we heard from our staff why this is a good number. And they had, suggested a number that was smaller than this. And then after discussion with the mayor, they came to a better option. So to me, I think what we have here is the best option.
Mr. Mayor.
And if I can really quick before we jump in, Director Sheets just wanted to check with the max block length requirement separate of the max perimeter length, does that effectively set, even if we remove the max perimeter, would that still effectively set a max perimeter length? Although they could still have multiple blocks that maybe never connect up. So I guess it wouldn't effectively quite set a perimeter length.
Yeah, that's why the two work together to, they complement each other, and we are able to address some of the issues that have been brought up.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Just a quick, I agree with everything Councilwoman, Chrisman says. But I also want to make sure we also remember that it wasn't, I mean, it was lots of components and work put into coming up with this plan, including from our citizen volunteers and what I'll call experts in the bicycle pedestrian commission. So I think it's good to remember this wasn't just some nilly-willy thing. Lots of work from lots of different folks went into this, and I agree. Obviously, I understand what is being said about, you know, being friendly to the developers, and I think that's important, and I think we're doing things to address that. But we also need to remember what's important for the people who live in those neighborhoods, and I think, yes, perfect example is the residents that we all got information on where they had the little footbridge to get from the neighborhood over to the new elementary school. So let's, as we're thinking, remember all those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep.
I'm not comfortable with the amendment without, you know, I would want to see what the effect of removing the 2,200 would have on applications of other language within the amendment to the subdivision. So I think it's hard to amend it on the fly, for one. We could always amend it later if we need to, if there's some specific discussion about it. But, you know, there's an exception for it. I mean, there is a provision in here that says it begins with adjustments to the specific standard listed in the subsection may be granted in circumstances warranted. And then it describes what we take into account to allow for the exceptions. So it's a good rule that can be accepted given circumstances. So I think that allows us the flexibility to address the concerns that they have been expressed up here, and otherwise it's a good ordinance change. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other discussion from council? Yep.
I would like to point out that on the grid that was put up there, there was only 2 other communities out of 8, I think, that had maximum length. So it's not a compelling dimension that other cities are doing. I do agree again with Mr. Schultz's comment about what is the max. You know, the idea of kids bicycling between homes, they cut right through the yards in my neighborhood, and that's never been a deterrent. That we got to build very expensive streets so kids can bicycle between communities or neighborhoods. But you know, that's, I think that needs to be adjusted. It really does, and I don't know how we go about doing that, but I'd still like to repeal that component. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion from council on, currently we're at the amendment to remove the perimeter?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I mean, given that it seems that there's not a preference to just remove it in total, I would say, I don't recall exactly what the top number was in our comparative cities, but if 3,500 would please the court, so to speak, I would amend that motion to amend to put a cap at 3,500 feet instead of 2,200, allowing for the status quo to be maintained. We've got many neighborhoods that have been developed and are preferential and desired that are functional. They're not the large sprawl that some are. So those are still removed at that cap of 3,500, and the status quo is maintained. If I remember correctly as well, I mean, there was a lot of argumentation when we were putting downtown form-based code in several years back, and the mention that rings in my mind was it's better to maintain status quo. It's also better to allow the market to dictate what it will do. So if you have a developer that you know, they want to put in smaller blocks or larger blocks, you allow them to know who they will market to without hamstringing them and removing their potential for profit. The cost of a lot in Cedar Falls is astronomically high compared to what it should be, and this is just another piece that requiring more infrastructure and more concrete and less profitable land is going to cause problems for our development. So 3,500 would still allow them to build within that and not allow it to go crazy. So that's my motion, to put a cap at 3,500 instead of no cap. I realize that would also send it back to do a little bit of reworking, but I'm sure staff can.
I consider it a friendly amendment then?
I was going to say, is everyone okay if we?
Motions now?
No, this amending the first motion.
I'll check, is everyone okay if we consider that a friendly amendment, or Attorney Rogers, are you wanting us to close out that?
The First Amendment would be withdrawn.
Yeah, I withdraw the First Amendment and move to set the cap to 3,500 feet instead of 2,200 for the perimeter block.
Motion for that?
Second.
Motion seconded, so
Now we're back in the same spot.
back in the same spot.
I guess I was going to throw a comment. If the maximum length of one of the sides, block length standard is 800, and you have a four-sided lot, 4 times 800 is 32. If you want to do another friendly amendment to get a number that makes sense, I don't know. It's up to you.
I think that's kind of what I was asking Director Sheets earlier, but theoretically, you could have a
Five-sided.
neighborhood with more than the 4 sides, so.
Could quickly get over the 2,200, but how easily will they allow an exception? That's the concern I have.
Okay, so currently, go ahead.
There are a number of criteria listed to what qualifies for an exception, such as, if it's a park area or a school or there's a creek crossing, that type of thing. So one thought that comes to mind is, we have a graphic in here about measuring the perimeter block length, and it includes if there's a cul-de-sac there, which that maximum length is 600 on a cul-de-sac. So I'm not sure what the 3,500 was based on.
Like I said, I did not remember what they were, so it was picked out of thin air. I mean, 3,200 does seem to be a calculation. I'd be fine with that.
What are you pointing at?
Looks as though staff maybe had a thought.
Yeah, please, JD.
Thank you. Just want to add one more thing. The comparative chart that was shown had 1,600 and 1,800 as two of the city's maximum perimeter block length standard. I think those Cedar Falls, what we are proposing is 2,200. With the comment, I think, as Stephanie mentioned, both having a block length standard and perimeter block length standard together will have more flexible options for a developer to choose. It will allow greater flexibility of block size and block shapes to be created. And I think without the perimeter block length standard, it would become more of a subjective standard open for debates. So the reason why we had a number in there was to have an objective standard in place. Also, to the point about 800 feet, if somebody's having a block with all sides as 800, that won't be a scenario because it would create a void in the center, which will be a no man's land because lots will not be about 400 feet deep. So, which is why we had the depth of the lot we imagined to be 300 on both sides and 800 on both sides to have the 2,200 feet. But that's all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you, JD.
Thank you.
So we currently have the amendment to look at putting the block perimeter max in at 3,500 feet. So any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment for the block perimeter length at 3,500 feet? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
So that motion does not carry and brings us back to the original motion. Since we're a little ways out from it, let me circle back to it. So the original motion to pass ordinance number 3109, amending chapter 20, subdivisions of the Code of Ordinances to update and establish definitions and regulations related to street connectivity upon second consideration. So any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just realized we did not do public comment.
Oh, yes, we did not. We can, if you guys are okay with it, sorry, we'll circle back and we need to still do public comment, so. So we'll circle back and open up for public comment, please. Yeah, yep. So apologies, I just forgot to do it through all the conversation.
Couple comments that were made by the members and staff. This subdivision ordinance that we have was currently published in 2010. We were promised that if it didn't seem to go the way that we wanted it to go, that we'd have an opportunity to amend it. This is now 2024. And we're now making it more harder to do development. We've put so many things on it that You take a piece of ground, you're just taking ground. You know, first it's 20 wetland plants and you take out an acre of ground. Then it's we need a 500-year floodplain, so you take out another 3 acres. When does anybody understand that this just costs more money? And we're not for affordable housing. If you're for this, you're not for affordable housing. It's a joke. You're not for affordable housing. We do nothing to back this thing off. I could give you all the things that are wrong with this, but we talk about everybody's such an environmentalist. This is horrible environmentally. This creates more runoff and more stormwater. Just the runoff from the extra streets is going to cause a whole bunch more retention pond that's going to be required of the developer, which takes out more land. Somewhere along the line, as we were promised, that this would be gone through, and it hasn't been. And I know it's a waste of time to stand here. I do know it's a waste of time to stand here and talk to you people, because your minds are made up, and you will not listen to anyone. No one. We come up here and we babble on, but your minds are made up. We have these pretend discussions, but your minds are made up. I don't know who your experts are that you talk to, but a bicycle committee is not it. Maybe in cooperation with some developers, but this stuff stinks. You're not in favor of this city. You're sure not in favor of growth. Prior to the previous subdivision ordinance, when it was passed, there was 1,000 lots go through planning and zoning. 1,000 lots. And they were all planned badly, right? We have great neighborhoods. I'll bet you there hasn't been 1,000 lots passed since then, in 14 years. Why do you think that is? Any answers? I don't understand it. I don't. Again, the people who suffer are our citizens in terms of higher values, higher lot costs. And we're at a point of frustration where we just can't hold it in anymore. We're just tired of getting beat on. My time is done. But there are other people who need to come in and be welcomed into development. And this doesn't do it. If there's no profit and there's no acorn in it, and you don't know what you're going to make, why do it? It's that simple. Maybe you should represent the citizens. Not everything that comes down from staff should be carte blanche approved. It shouldn't. There should be discussion. This is our only opportunity. You tell us there was all these opportunities to discuss this. There wasn't where was public input. You guys have your workshop meetings, but there's no public input. We're not allowed to speak. I recommend that you stop the whole thing and go back and do the subdivision ordinance like we talked about. That's what I would do. This used to be a great city to work at. John Cruz, come back. Mr. McAllister, come back. Because this was a friendly city to work with. And we didn't have these kind of arguments. And I don't know what's gone on here, but this is not good. I've seen it before, and now I'm seeing it again. Stop this.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Any other public comment for this item tonight?
I'm Jack Yates, 519 Chateau Court. I am a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Commission. I do not consider myself any kind of expert on connectivity in general, but our commission did have an extensive presentation on the nature of the connectivity plan being presented here and discussed here. And after that presentation, we had an extensive discussion among ourselves And we decided that this will make a more livable city, more bikeable, more walkable, and more drivable, and just a nicer place to live. I hope you will pass the points that are in front of you, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Just name, please.
Yes, sir. Rick Sharp. I guess based on the passionate comments that were made, what harm would be done to table this and follow the recommendations? I mean, I'm just speaking out of cluelessness right now, but what's the harm would happen if you tabled that and actually kind of reviewed what Mr. Fairbanks was saying? That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Anyone else for public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, again, apologize, council, that forgot to bring that in. Attorney Rogers.
Prior vote should be rescinded, so it's out of order. And now to move on the resolution.
Okay.
Do we get any more comment or not?
We'll come back to council discussion. So any other additional council discussion at this point?
Mr. Mayor? I mean, I do think it's worth noting, I've experienced a few of these, and I'm not at all trying to speak down at anybody, but once it's set in law, we talk about this as if we'll go back and revisit it and massage it in place, but that's just not the case in experience. We've not gone back and retweaked. So we'll say things like, well, let's just try it and see what happens. But this is the only opportunity we have to get it right. Once it's set, it's law. We're not going to mess with it and repeal anything or change it. That's just not the way we've done it. You could prove me wrong, absolutely. But my experience in almost 4 years has been, let's try it means shut up and take your medicine. So that's why I changed my mind. I don't think this is the right way forward to make it affordable for people to develop. Hope more will join me.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
So, you know, I kind of, well, I'm not even going to say it. Listening to citizens, you can listen and not agree. And to say that folks don't care up here, that's incredibly insulting and frankly not true. So to counter what Councilman Ganfield said, I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, there are many folks, and I'm not saying that people in here aren't happy, but I always think that there are, and I'm sure there are eye rolling going on right now, there are many folks that are content and appreciate the work we do. So I am open to changing ordinances and laws when we need to, and there's good reason to. But when we don't, I don't think that's if there's not a good reason to change something, then obviously we're not going to bring it back and keep beating the same horse. And you know, I understand we're not agreeing on this, but there are many people who, you know, obviously there's folks that don't appreciate or don't agree with some of us, and that's fine. But there are a whole bunch that do. And when we say there's not, there's not representation and all the things, that's what elections are for. So there's an election year. You can show up and make your voices heard that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah, yep.
I would just say that we have given great consideration to this. And, you know, if I was a developer and I could sell one more lot or two more lots or four more lots and not make it a more livable area, that's what I would want to do, is make my money on that and not have to make it a more livable area. My goal is to make it a more livable area. That's in the short. I could have a lot more conversation, but that's in short.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cruz?
I agree with Gil, what you're saying. Some developers might be inclined to do that, but some of these things, another, I guess, digging into weeds was the right-of-way at 66 feet. And you take out the street of 31 feet, back a curb to back a curb, you end up at 35 feet, split that in half or 17 feet on each side, and you got to put in the gas, electric cable, sanitary sewers under the street usually. Storm drain will be right on the side of the street. I don't see why we need that much frontage to take away from the developer to put in more of a grid, more, economic or more profitable. I mean, we hit the profit word, but you don't need 17 feet to put on both sides of the street, each side of the street, to put in gas, electric cable and a storm drain. You just don't need that much. It's silly. Some neighborhoods got 5 feet and then they got the sidewalk. I forget the sidewalks goes in there too, but you know, I look at the analytics of this and there's components that really need to be changed. And to Councilor Ganfield's point, we don't change things once we put them in place. It's a fight. It's a tooth and nail fight to change anything. And the time to address it and look at it is at the front end and not just pass it and see what happens. And to a speaker's comment, you know, we don't go back and look at things. It's unfortunate, so.
So, Mr. Mayor, my point is I'm not voting on this to think, well, I'm already thinking that it needs to be reworked. We're voting on this because this is where the work has led us to. This is what's the evidence has shown us of the best way to go. So it isn't like I'm thinking, well, in 6 months we're going to massage this and get a different plan in order. This is the plan that has been brought forth, and that's the plan I'm voting on.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think some of the rationale within it is certainly needed, and that is the natural evolution of what we've experienced, right? Disconnected subdivisions where they didn't have the forethought of how is someone at the southwest corner of my lot going to connect to the next subdivision that may get built out or may not. Absolutely needs to get done. There are pieces of this change that are natural evolution. But Councilmember Dunn, to that point of what's the reasoning, I think that was the rationale behind the block perimeter change, because what's status quo in the Arbors, for example, wouldn't be allowed. We'd have to put in 2 more streets. So the rationale there is it's more costly to put in 2 streets as opposed to 1. And so that one's allowed because it's already in motion, so to speak. But new ones would be more costly to the tune of 1 more road, no matter the length of it. Maybe it'd be 200 feet because that's the block side allowed. But that's the reason for me. So it's not changing it for no reason. I did pick the 3,500 out of the air because I didn't remember what the matrix was. But can you refute the reason there that putting in more roads is more costly to the developer, therefore more costly to the homeowner, making our costs of housing still unaffordable? That's solid reason. That's why I want to remove that piece of it. So I guess I heard you say, you know, if there's good reason, that's good reason, and you voted no to that amendment. So
It's good reason
you know
for
what I mean?
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for every citizen, because they're the ones paying the cost for that, right?
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, councilors.
So to that, why have sewer or water or streets or any sidewalks? Just build a house. It's got to be the cheapest way to go.
Well, I'm not going to put 2 sewer lines to my house
guys,
if one's adequate.
We'll keep it one speaker at a time.
Facetious here.
So
I get you're being facetious, Gil, but I think that's a far reach from saying, hey, you have to put in 2 roads as opposed to
And that's where
infrastructure.
we came to this. You know, I appreciate you trying to figure out another option, but this has been an ongoing discussion for years. And it wasn't something that just popped up tonight. And so you got to make a decision, and I've made mine, and each of you need to make yours, and I'm ready to roll on it.
thank you, Councilor.
Mayor. Collectively, improvements are great. Gil, I appreciate your comments. I'm ready to move forward with most of it, but there are some components that are distinctly bad, and I outlined a few. Dustin has outlined one. And it's like everybody's set in their way and they're not going to change. They're just not going to change for whatever reason. And it's unfortunate. You don't need 17-foot right away for a sidewalk and then underground utilities. You just don't need that, Gil.
I didn't even think that was part of the discussion. We were talking about the.
That's part of the
But it's,
language.
yeah,
Okay,
it's an
enough of
additional
that.
part that you added, but.
Enough of that. So I'm just saying that we're not looking out for the citizens. The financial viability of expanding the city. And as we make new lots more expensive, that raises everybody's property tax. I hope you know that. Because the reason this last valuation had a jump was your lots went up in value. Mine, the house went down 1,000 or two, but my lots all jumped dramatically.
Well, I wouldn't say all homes were probably the same.
All the lots jumped dramatically. For your lot, did anybody improve their lot to make it jump $10,000, $20,000, whatever it was? Your lot just sits there and your house is on it. Now, if you improve the house and make an addition and put on a deck and a pool and what have you, then you can assess it higher. But your lot is your lot that's been there for decades and maybe centuries. The cost of comparable sales of a lot goes up because of this developing code and different components of it, and not having as many lots in a subdivision. So this will directly affect everybody's property tax, or excuse me, the value of your lot on your house, whether you do anything to the lot or not. You won't really do anything to it because the lot's dirt. So anyway, you got to look at the ripple effects, the unintended consequences of these things, and that's a big consequence.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other further discussion from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
Five voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. We'll now move to the consent calendar. So the following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests a specific item be considered separately. Are there any items to consider from council? All right, seeing none, are there any from the public?
13.
Item 13. Okay, any others from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve items 14 through 19 of the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now to move to item 13, look for a motion to receive and file the City Council Committee of the Whole minutes of April 21st, 2025 relative to the following items: South Main and Sanitary Sewer Project Update and the Refuse Study Presentation. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Just name, please.
Rick Sharp. So I just want to thank Brian for that presentation on the refuse study. It's very easy, clear cut to follow. I don't think staff and even Kim gets enough credit for like the minutes and the presentations that they provide to us. It just made it very simple to follow because I was unable to go there, but I was able to pull it up and basically just knew exactly what's going to happen, clear cut. So I just want to express my thanks to not only Brian, but other staff members in the past when they present these. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Or you're not Brian. Thank you, Rick, for the kind words about the team.
About Brian.
And thank you, Brian. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Any other discussion from the public? Just name, please.
Kim Jordan. I think as I was looking at it, we were talking about the garbage fees that were in there as well. So is the utilities in charge of that, or does that get dictated by the city? Because it shows up on our utility bill what that garbage container is costing. But this is all additional fees that are going into it. So we're getting hit by the utilities and then by the city, and it's all landfill.
Or could you just speak to the billing for refuse?
So refuse is a city service. It's just the billing part of it goes through Cedar Falls Utilities.
Okay, so you are billed through CFU for it. It's run by us, but I think we passed that billing through CFU.
Okay. So over the last few years, if I'm right, the small containers have been about $9.
And Mr. Jensen, the item here is just for the minutes. So if you have any
Okay.
concerns with the minutes of it, however, if you do have questions on the actual billing, we can make sure and touch base with you here afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments for this item tonight? All right, seeing none, any additional conversation from council? Seeing none requires a or voice vote. Excuse me. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Now move to the resolution calendar. So the following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Are there any requests from council?
24.
Let's see, 24. Any others from council? As a reminder, item 29 has been removed from the agenda. All right, hearing none. Any from the public? All right, seeing none, I will look for a motion to approve items 20 through 34, excluding items 24 and 29, which has been removed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded and requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That motion carries. Move to item number 24 and look for a motion or resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement regarding funding with the University of Northern Iowa relative to the UNIDome renovation project. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded and open for discussion. Counselor?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I want to pass on a number of opinions or comments from constituents. There's no doubt that the renovations will help the university, specifically the UNIDome, attract people. But the biggest concern that people have is that we have a public taxing entity, which is Cedar Falls, paying money from all of the citizens to another tax recipient entity of the university. Their fundraising project, very noble and very good, $250 million, was a 5-year program. I think within 2 years and a little bit more, they raised the $250 million and are going up to $300 million. So the concerns that constituents have said to me, just like I mentioned, the tax-paying entity feeding another tax recipient is a big concern, and they don't really like it. For that reason, I'm going to vote no on this to support what my constituents are telling me, and I've had quite a few of them tell me that concern. I don't think the city should be in the business of taking tax dollars from our citizens, increasing potentially the tax millage rate, to hand it over to another entity that would be financed by federal and state tax dollars. And then their own fundraising. They've got alumni for 100 and some years that are very generous, have contributed a lot of money. I just don't think it's our place to do that as a city with public tax money. That's my comment in passing on.
Yeah.
I tend to believe what they're saying, knowing public finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion from council on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
So this was akin to, the dilemma and the deep discussions that we had with supporting the pool with the high school, because that's essentially a similar comparison. And as we look deeper in, well, what's in it for the city? That was part of the big decision making, at least for me, is what was in it, that pool, for the city? Well, there's a lot. There's a utilization of that. It's the bolstering of the ability for the high school to have competitive tournaments and bring in tourists that stay at our hotels and eat at our restaurants. And that's similar, if not less so, than what the UNIDome, which is this, if it was the education part and the campus part, we're talking about what the functions of the UNIDome have meant to this city and the benefits that this city has gained from having that dome for the boat shows and the car shows and the concerts and the sporting events. The city benefits greatly from that, much more than surrounding cities do, and we do have a benefit from it. Can we put a number on it? To some extent, I think the chamber does put a number on it, on the influence of that. The amount that, any amount that we give, it's not being voted on by anyone up here on, without great consideration, is what's the payback, what's the benefit for the citizens, and there is benefit for the citizens. So.
Thank you, Counselor. One second,
Follow
we'll
up.
see if anybody else
Yep.
needs, and then we'll circle back. Anyone else, council?
Mr. Mayor? If I may, I think actually Bob and I heard from the athletic director, Ms. Franklin, this morning about some of the potential for the dome, and just keeping in mind that economic impact is something that has changed my dedication to that funding mechanism. You know, we're spending $600,000 to put in roads in a small subdivision that's going to eventually get us some tax boost, right? But this one, the intangible amount of economic stimulus that comes through people using our hotels and motels and our gas stations and our restaurants, et cetera, are huge. And the athletic offerings will only improve with the dome being refurbished and maintained. And it is somewhat a point of pride for anybody that's been around here. We've got the only indoor facility, I mean, all over. And if Ms. Franklin is to, I don't want to steal her thunder, but it'll have international draw power if they're able to recoup or remodel the dome in the ways they see potential. So I think it is a good spend, and to put it down in contract so that they have some certainty that the $17 million they've already spent isn't wasted or in threat, I think it's good to go forward with this contract at this time.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Thank you, Counselor. Yep.
Well, the other thing, to add to that, I am in full agreement with that, but it's not just, the idea of recouping the investment for years. I mean, this improvement will be in place for years. The city will benefit for years. I think the rate of return on that with this essentially one-time investment is substantial, and so I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Yep.
Not to belabor the point, but I've had similar conversations with our new athletic director of the university and with President Nook as it relates to this project. And let's also remember that we also substantially decreased the funding that this body was going to provide to the University of Northern Iowa. So that does show that we did spend some time thinking on this, and yet we still recognize that there's a substantial ROI on this project. So, I mean, just this weekend, the Dome hosted a 7-on-7 youth football tournament while under construction. And we received a lot of folks coming into town for that. So I look forward to seeing what this may draw. It's good to dream big, and it appears as though the university's attempting to do that, and I think we're the recipients of a lot of the benefit from that. So I don't have any concerns with this agreement. I still stand behind the fact that we needed to make some tough decisions and maybe reduce the amount that we'd originally committed to. That was a pain point for a lot of us, but we did it. And so I'm great with this number that we've got here now, and I think we need to move it forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Come back.
Well, I circle back to what I said earlier, that I have no doubt that the renovations will help the UNIDome and the attractiveness of the facility. I'm passing on the voice of constituents who have a concern. They have a right to be heard. They're not here to speak, so I'm doing so for on their behalf. One question I forgot to mention or ask was, what access will Cedar Falls residents have with any 28E agreement with the Dome as far as running the track or any weight rooms, or what do we have access to? Because I know a lot of money from the city has gone to the Dome facilities. So can anybody elaborate on that, what the 28E agreement would be?
So the agreement you have before you is what we're instructed to provide. It does not have any additional 28E. It's really a funding agreement.
Okay.
And I can speak to that a little bit too, if I may.
Yeah, I'd like to, so that citizens can hear what they're getting from access to the Dome, if any.
Yep. So in conversations with everyone here, I did double check on the expectations there, and from the original approval of this, it was approved as a contribution to the university for the project. However, I will say, just beyond the scope of this one individual contribution, have had meet regularly with President Nook almost monthly to discuss our ongoing partnerships, projects we're working on. They've been instrumental in helping with some of the fireworks show, and I do think we're being a lot more intentional about what that relationship looks like with you and I, both being able to support, but also see where we can find partnerships as a community. So I do think for this contract, the kind of guidance I felt from council and what I felt we approved was essentially a contribution to supporting the project. But I will say it also goes with making sure we're continuing to build on that relationship with you and I, and making sure that we're always making sure that relationship goes two ways, working with them.
Right. I guess the focus of my question wasn't whether we get an additional time slot, 28E. I was just wondering, in general, what's the access to the Dome for the public?
Do you know if there's any current public hours for, I know there used to be some stair hours, but.
I don't believe there's any formal hours, but I know that there's some exercise hours that when they're not practicing or some of those things, early morning hours that people go and work out at the Dome. But I don't know of any formal agreement that outlines those.
I can check on it just so.
Yeah, just so the public knows.
Yep, because I'm not sure if there is any current, so I can check on that with.
I do remember a number of years ago, a discussion about access time.
Yep.
So,
Okay, look into it. Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Just name, please.
Kim Jordan. The college is an asset to our community. However, we are, as elected officials up here, presuming a big gift for the public. And I tend to agree with Councilman Cruz on this whole issue. The public, maybe some of them never ever go there. There are things that people just cannot afford to do. And our high school, for example, has built a brand new football field because they did not have access time. That is a big concern. When we start to say that we're going to fund, that's the problem. We offered to give it to them before. Then elected officials pulled it back, which was really unfair to the university. So the mistake was made right up here behind the doors of not listening to the voices of the public. That's the problem that we're addressing that no one is actually wanting to voice, because we did not want to go $3 million with no sunset and potentially have it go roll over for every year, having $3 additional million on a big gift. And some of those numbers had to be addressed, then it was cut back to $1.5 million. But when we cut it back, they had already started funding for it, knowing that they were going to have a gift. But what does the public really get? When the Price Lab, we opened the door with the school system in Lake, for example. The university took away the Price Lab. That was less amenities. They sold off the field house. The field house was offering options for people to come in and utilize. That was partnering, kind of giving back. What else do we have besides that? Is there going to be something like that? Is it we just do public safety with them? Nowhere else in Iowa City or Ames do they partner public safety along with the college. So we're already giving them a lot of amenities that some of these, Wartburg is public. Their public safety system does not take care of Wartburg. They have their own. So behind the scenes, there's things that the city officials are receiving, but the public is left out, and yet the donors are the main contributors to their growth. We're the beneficiary, and yet we own things here and things that we are not even addressing, and yet we're gifting to places that have unimaginable wealth at their fingertips. So I guess I would like for you all to know that, yes, there is an election, but it seems like we're not really ever going to be heard when it's already predetermined and the gift was already made, and then we have to peel it back. And then it makes the whole council, it makes the citizens look terrible, and we wouldn't have approved it anyway. We would have written a check and given it to them. That's our contribution choice.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen-Jordan.
Mr. Mayor, just point of order, that was a one-time ask for $3 million, correct? Not in perpetuity?
And just to clarify that, previously we had a $3 million commitment, but only a one-time. There was no recurring
And we
ongoing
reduced
gift
that
for
number.
Correct.
Thanks.
Thank you. It'd be nice to get some of those other questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen-Jordan. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment this evening?
Mr. Mayor, just one point of clarification as well. We do have a separate 2080 agreement with the university in which they pay us for fire services.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Gaines.
My name is Bob Manning, 2908 West 3rd Street, Cedar Falls. It's interesting, the statistics in the state of Iowa. If you don't count Des Moines, the 4 or 5 largest cities, or the cities that are showing the most growth, are those cities that have a college or a junior college and all the benefits that offers. Now, that's very hard to quantify, but that's something that we've observed, and our sports commission for Cedar Falls says that that's one of the cases why they're promoting some things. The reference from Councilman Ganfield about Megan Franklin, the new AD at UNI, speaking today at a Rotary Club was excellent, because one of the things that she did in Des Moines was start a soccer complex with a private and public partnership. And those are some of the best partnerships that we can design or put together. And now that complex is being run over with people and kids and coaches that want to play softball, or excuse me, that want to play soccer there. And so that can be unlimited here also. How many times have we heard the saying, all the way to the dome? Isn't that a strong saying? And that's what high school and parents are saying in their towns of Keokuk and Des Moines and Cedar Rapids and Quad Cities. I mean, that's excellent to have that kind of a logo, a saying tied with that. I mean, nothing runs like a deer. You automatically assort that with the green machine. All the way to the dome, you automatically put that together with what's happening in Cedar Falls. And although we have to be careful with taxpayer dollars, to not do this is really looking behind or sticking your head in the sand and not having an open mind about what else can we do to make this city attractive, to make it desirable. Well, one of the things we have to do is get them here to look around. And that's what RAGBRAI's purpose is this summer. They're so excited about having RAGBRAI come through Cedar Falls, because the RAGBRAI committee will get a chance to show off Cedar Falls. And so much of what the Dome does, and the university in general does, is spreading the word and showing off what we have to offer our citizens and others. People come here because of the bike trails, because of the amenities that the Dome offers. Perhaps they're into hockey or ice skating, so they use the Young Arena. I mean, we have several attributes here in our Cedar Valley communities that, as we continue to get the word out, that will just bring people here and have them understand the beauty and the love that our cities offer to folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Just name and address, please.
Yes. Paul Ryder, 5313 Caraway Lane. I think it's really unfortunate that there still exists this notion that there's them and us. I spent 41 years teaching at the university. I came here to teach at the university, as did many of my colleagues, and we're part of this community. It's not a separate island up there. We're part of the community. My kids were raised here, and as have many of my colleagues. So the university is part of the community. And it brings much to this community as the community brings to it. So I think it's really unfortunate to have this them and us attitude about the university. And I wish President Nook was here so he could kind of respond to this. But this is an investment in a facility that I don't think you can you cannot deny that it brings a huge amount of money and support and people into this community. And it's being modernized, and I think I happen to be involved in the WRC facility, and we do have a program where we let community leaders, community people come up there and use the facilities. They can do that. And we worked out those arrangements, so people from this community have been using the athletic facilities. They can use the dome to run. So there's a lot of give and take. So I think it's unfortunate to have the notion that, and I served on this council, as you may know, so I gave a lot of my years to this community. So I feel like the university and the community are one thing, and I hope you feel that way too.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Anyone else for public comment on this item tonight? Just name, please.
Rick Sharp. I have to agree with Councilmember Cruz. Again, it's a public entity tax raising facility. Not denying the dome had its time and stuff, but we also got to be judicious to all the taxpayers. Cost of livings are going up, property values are going up, taxes are going up, wages are stagnant, and yet we're somehow finding $2 million for this, but we could have easily put the money towards like the sidewalk assessment fund, stuff that the public actually would benefit from. I keep hearing things about how great that all the stuff that the UNI would bring to the community, but when I'm hearing hotels, I'm seeing hotels make the money. It doesn't come back to me. The restaurants, again, the restaurant owners, they make the money. It doesn't come back to me or the taxpayers. Maybe like I'm glad it's a one-time ask. I'm hoping that down the road, if they fall short of their funding, they don't come back out with saying, hey, can you hook us up, we're $1 million short. Come on, get us over the finish line. I like to see when the city does present money to public entities that they can actually break it down into a tax benefit for the taxpayer, each individual taxpayer, saying this is what your property taxes are going to go down, or however that reflects. So people that don't use the dome or don't do whatever, they're not part of the hotel industry, the restaurant industry. As a taxpayer, what do I actually gain from this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Anyone else for public comment on this item tonight? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for any additional conversation or thoughts.
I'd just add a couple of things on, maybe ask Mr. Rodebeck, what's the hotel motel tax, and why would I want that in my town?
Sure. So hotel motel tax, right now the percentage is 7% that a person pays when they stay at a hotel. And then that money is to Cedar Falls, half of it by our resolution goes to visitors and tourism to fund that. The other half goes to help projects in parks, cultural, rec. That's what it talks about. So I think that's what you were asking for, Gil, was
So
that helps?
you get, the Cedar Falls people get something out of that.
Sure. Hotel motel tax, local option sales tax, if people spend money here, and that helps with streets. So those would be kind of the two ways that those type of things would help the city.
So I guess hotel employees that live in Cedar Falls are able to have employment in Cedar Falls, and benefits all of us in employment. So you could just keep on digging deeper and deeper into how that dome influences the city and influences the state. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Councilor. Cruz.
Thank you. So I guess I'm kind of digging deep in my thinking on why I object to this, and have objected since the beginning. The university has endowments and all sorts of contributions and donations from people that give readily and freely to the university because they feel that their education coming from the university helped them succeed in life, and it certainly has helped me, and so on. How many, Ms. Rodebeck, how many donations does the city get in millions in a year? not property tax, but do we get donated like 250 million like the university collected in 2.5 years?
Nope.
We get.
Are you looking to make a endowment? Or
I can do that when I'm deceased.
Sounds like you're you and I.
I'll spend my niece's and nephew's inheritance. So, but you don't even have to answer that. I know there's contributions to various statues and things in the city and whatnot, but you have to look at the university raised $250 million in 2 1/3 years or whatever it was, and then they raise it to $300 million. Because people are generous for lots of reasons and things that everybody has said. We're given, when the city donates $3 million, citizens are not happy. There's people that are happy that have spoke, but the mechanics of it is, UNI has that warm fuzzy feeling tug when you donate $1 million or whatever. And people have done that and got buildings named after themselves. But the citizens is a different story. I agree with everything everybody said about the benefits of the university and the community and the dome and sports events and so on and so on. But the mechanics of it is that the city doesn't have multiple millions to be a charitable donor. We have to raise it from the citizens, all the citizens that own property. So the mechanics is different when we give away our money, and that's what we're doing. So just wanted to clarify that component of it. That's, so I won't bug Gil to say that I'm a money.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
and appreciate seeing Tom and Paul here tonight. And maybe they have an answer, maybe Paul knows, or Jennifer. There is a confinement on that money that's being donated to the university on what they can apply to the dome renovation. I do not know the exact numbers. Are you familiar with those constraints?
I think he's talking about that. A lot of those donations, the 250 million goal, and a lot of those are earmarked for specific projects at the university.
Not necessarily, hey, you already got your money because you got 250. That's a overall.
There's endowments and components and buildings.
But
There's categories.
Yes, but and the dome category isn't in that huge percentage. So Jennifer, not familiar either.
No,
and I wouldn't
it's
know the
not.
specific numbers either.
I did email them, and I think they're at 20 million or thereabouts of 50 total. So.
Thank you, councilors.
All right.
Any other thoughts, discussion from council? All right, seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
How come mine's?
Break it.
I'm in resolution calendar. Refresh? Oh, no, it's refresh.
Chris knows how to push your buttons.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
The motion carries. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we will now move to, let me get my bearings here for where we're at. Now move to ordinances. Item number 35, pass an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Garbage and Refuse of the Code of Ordinances relative to service charges established and unsanitary accumulations, unsightly trash, refuse, yard waste, oil or grease recycling containers or dumpsters upon its first consideration.
So move. Second.
Motion seconded, and any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move to item number 36, allow bills and claims for May 5th. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, and any discussion from council? Seeing none, any from the public? Also seeing none, requires a roll call vote, please.
All members voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any council updates and or announcements? I do have a couple things here quick. One, did want to check. So we had on the previous, this year, talking about plans for this year, timelines to discuss in May, the ADU requirements and circling back to that. Big thing that we do have coming up, though, since we did just approve one of the items for acquiring the U.S. Bank lot, is some of the parking, so we'd like to bring back some information on that at the next meeting. We just wanted to see, is everybody comfortable? That'll probably be at least a 2-meeting thing to bring some information, get some thoughts, let everyone sit on that, and then bring back more formal information later. Just if we go ahead and put that as a priority, it might mean maybe not getting to ADUs till later in the month or till June. But just wanted to see, we'll put them both in there, but just wanted to see if kind of putting priority on that parking discussion first, if that's all right. Did you have something, Gil?
Don't do it.
I just, I don't want to hold up any ADU developments. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Counselor. And really quick, I did want to just comment on something from some of the public comment. I do know sometimes there's some questions on feeling like we're not transparent about things, and especially with anything personnel related, that is ultimately my responsibility as the executive of this city to ensure that we are leading from up here on behalf of what we're hearing from residents, the needs, and doing our role to make sure and address some of those concerns. So to any of the perceptions that maybe we're not being transparent, we are an employer like any other. We do have employment law around how we discuss some of the inner workings of how we deal with personnel issues, addressing any of those things. And I think to any of the community that feels some of those things aren't getting addressed, I would just simply ask that we are open. Please come talk to me. I'm more than glad to address anything. But I feel a lot of times that those things are thrown out there. But again, we have a responsibility to our residents up here. We take that very seriously. I mean, speaking for myself, and I know others up here, we've had a lot of conversations on some of those, and I would say that is really on my responsibility to ensure that we're living up to that. So I take full accountability for making sure we're doing that as a body. Well, for myself and my role as the head of the city, but so otherwise, we'll move to council referrals. We do have an item number 37, so a referral to consider the merits of having the city department directors report directly to the mayor and not having a city administrator or a city manager. So do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. So motion second and open for council discussion.
So with a little research, discussion with some people, our city charter says we have a strong mayor, strong council form of government. Many years ago, and really not that many, we didn't have a city administrator. We had the managers, directors, department heads report directly to the mayor and council to discuss decisions and so on. And it's evolved over the last 20 plus years to where we are today. A number of people feel that it's not working. We don't have transparency like we should. The form-based zoning, for example, is being adopted with staff making decisions behind closed doors. What gets built, council doesn't get to see it. It's under the direction of the city administrator. So I have a simple request here, and that is to discuss if we want to go back to the way we operated years ago without the city administrator position, or do we have the wrong person as a city administrator? This is the discussions that I've had in the public. So I'd like to have this discussion at a committee meeting before the end of June.
And just to clarify quick, this item is simply to discuss the position itself and the merits of where the department directors report, and as well having the city administrator role. Not referring anything to any sort of performance evaluation of any current staff, but it's just to the role.
Because I want the public to have a chance to come forward and speak on their concerns in the situation. And the best way to do that is through a committee meeting, as far as I can see.
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think, the merits of the discussion there, I'm aware that there's some process circulating out in town about petitioning to change our form of government. I know Waterloo had the same conversation, at least fledgling portions of that conversation last year as well. But we've not entertained that idea of moving to a manager-council form of government, and there are some petitioning to get that on the referendum. So I think there is merit to that discussion and gaining the public input on whether that's the direction we want to go or not. So that's why I seconded. Also, additionally, I mean, I brought this up at goal setting in my documents. the last couple of years to talk about whether that's the direction we continue to go, but it hasn't garnered any support yet. But I guess we hadn't asked it out loud in this fashion, so let's see what people think.
So just quick point of clarification, I believe the council manager form of government would essentially be the opposite of this referral, where it is really establishing the full city manager role and giving more authority to that position. So it's not exactly in line with what this referrals discussion is, but.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I mean, that's the difficulty I'm having with this referral. We established early on the specific ways that we can have referrals. One is in writing. The second is a pressing referral. I'm assuming this wasn't a pressing referral, so the referral would have been in writing. Referrals in the past, when they're in writing, provide the sufficient information to enable the council to determine if the request merits referral. So in other words, this discussion that we're having right now have been part of the packet in the past, so that the public and us would have some sort of notice as to why the referral is being requested in the first place. And so this is a referral about a concept to have a discussion about maybe specifics, to your point, Mr. Mayor. And so that's why, even on its face, as a form of referral, it's not adequate. If you want to flesh it out with more specificity in the future, write another written referral with the sufficient information required by our council. I'm against this referral.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussions or thoughts from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I do want to point out it was timely because it was to you by the required.
Yes, it was submitted on time, yep.
Okay. And it was a simple ask to have a committee meeting to discuss the form of government. So it's pretty straightforward. Doesn't need to have a big Bible of information.
Any discussion, thoughts from council? All right, seeing none, we'll, as is an item we are voting on, we'll move this to public comment for any public comment tonight. Just name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor Loddick, City Council, City staff, and my fellow engaged citizens. My name is Rob Green, and I live at 314 Olive Street here in Cedar Falls. Since completing my 2 terms as mayor, I've made a point to stay out of local politics gladly. That said, I've been delighted with the council's direction and the collaborative, respectful dialogue that has characterized your decision-making these past 18 months. You're a strong team, and as a citizen, I'm grateful for your thoughtful service and commitment to the principles of good governance. I'm here before you tonight because I feel compelled to speak on the referral request on tonight's agenda. I urge you to shut down this proposal to consider eliminating the city administrator position tonight. The referral is both pointless and harmful. First, it's pointless because this issue has already been addressed. A decade ago, after thorough deliberation, the City Council created the administrator position to align with a widely adopted model used by successful cities across the country. This structure allows the mayor to focus on strategic executive leadership, while the professional administrator manages the day-to-day operations as guided by the City Council. This governance model has become the standard, not the exception. There's been no new evidence or emerging trends to suggest that this model is failing us or cities like ours. So why rehash it? Second, it's harmful because even referring this idea to committee sends the wrong message, both to our current administrator and to any future candidates for this very important job. How can we be expected to retain or attract top-tier talent if the City Council signals a willingness to eliminate the very position they're being asked to fill? This kind of uncertainty would be very likely to discourage capable professionals from committing to Cedar Falls. During my time as mayor, I appreciated the council's willingness to explore issues deeply in committees and work sessions. These were fantastic sessions. But sometimes, even starting a formal discussion has serious negative consequences. This referral, if approved, would be one of those times. While any council member has and should have the right to bring forward a referral, the council is under no obligation whatsoever to act on that referral. Tonight, I ask you to vote this referral down, first as a clear vote of confidence in our excellent city administrator, and second, as a reaffirmation of the city's commitment to a governance model that pairs a dynamic, strategic, and empowered mayor with a seasoned professional city administrator who is at all times accountable to the city council. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Major Green. Is there anyone else for public comment on this item tonight? Just name, please.
Rick Sharp. Yes, sir. Again, I'm all about having discussions. I don't think the council should table this. There's nothing wrong with having heartfelt discussion just to see what we can discover on this. I will say that this full-time mayor, full-time city administrator / manager model that we run in Cedar Falls is pretty much unique to the state of Iowa. Most of the communities, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, et cetera, they have a full-time city manager and administrator, but a part-time mayor. We are one of the few that have both. And so I do, and I have been bringing this up for years that I've worked here. It's something that we need to explore and see what we want to go as a city. And it sounds like the citizens are already like, yeah, let's take another look at how this works. Over the last couple of decades, the council has stripped the mayor of duties, starting with Mayor Cruz, and passed them on to the former city manager, city administrator Dick McAllister. So they've been slowly taking duties away from the elected mayor to an unelected official. I just think this merits discussion. There's no harm in doing that. There's never any harm having discussions on this. And it could look at down the road saving taxes. I mean, we have a city manager that's making, what, $250,000 a year. We have a mayor that's making over $100,000 a year. We're taking personalities aside. We're trying to cut the budget the best we can, keep it lean, and we're getting to a point down the road that staffing and salaries is going to be the next target at some point. Hopefully we never get there, but at some point, like we're looking at the federal government, they're looking at ways to reduce cost, and now it's come to staffing. And at some point, that's going to have to be a bridge we all cross. So again, I understand there's pros and cons, sports for the administrating position and not, but I don't think there's any harm at least entertaining the idea. Let's just have a discussion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Just name, please.
Craig Fairbanks. I'd like to address comments from a previous mayor about his stance on this position, where he thought that the mayor should be a part-time position. And we should have a city administrator, which is fine. But now we have both. And yet, we as citizens feel like we don't have, we're not allowed to set policy. It's being set by one person. And it's gone all the way down. It is time to consider something different. It sets the tone for the whole city. It sets the tone for the whole staff. There's one voice, and that's the voice of the city administrator. It's not the voice of my mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbanks. Anyone else for public comment on this? Just name, please.
Kim Jordan. I would echo that. First Street reconstruction, prime example. Had Snyder Construction come in, and I mean, if you want examples of it's ran and decisions are made and the public does not have any input, I can give you a numerous amount of them. But from a business owner, we were told this plan right here is what the city wants. And we said, here's what's wrong, here's what's wrong, here's what's wrong. What about those two plans over there? No, we cannot use those. Why? Well, we learned during the University Avenue, if you choose to go and recommend that things are not quite needed and you're going to make amendments and changes or recommendations, it's going to get shut down. I wanted to do just a little bit of checking personally on a project that has been kind of tabled, not historically preserved, after 3 requests, told, no, we haven't been instructed to put it in National Historic Preservation mode yet. I said, really? I have 3 different written requests. We haven't been instructed on doing that yet. The 1%, 7% local option. Other communities put a little bit in for historic preservation.
Just, I'm just going to try
I'm
to help
just
keep
trying
this
to,
the
to
position.
let you know that you're not really seeing the public view either. When I was speaking and addressing Mr. Gaines about the condition of Sartori and how I had spoke to the maintenance, I received a call later from their executive saying that I should make sure that I'm not talking to the building maintenance people. Well, that was a little obvious that it might have come from someone. And I instructed her that I had another issue on a different site that they had, just a personal observation. So I think what we're seeing is there is no transparency. These are just isolated things, but isolated things lead to allocating money that maybe hasn't been discussed, and kind of like what we just discussed with you and I. All of the residents, all the people of Cedar Falls love you and I. That's one of the reasons we live here. We wouldn't not want to support them. However, when we're giving them stuff that they can get elsewhere and it's going to affect our taxes and we've had choices, those are things that are coming from up above. That maybe we, looking at budgets and positions where we're going to need to start cutting, and I think it's going to have to hit sooner than later, I think we'd want an elected mayor over a non-elected official. And that, I think, is going to be echoed if you all have the guts to speak up and vote what your real conscience is and try to get your constituents, the taxpayers' voice in your ear so that you're knowing, yes, we need to cut expenses. We're going to start in our own backyard right now and take a look and maybe put it on the voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jason Jordan. Anyone else for public comment tonight? Just name and address, please.
Tom Haggerty, 809 Franklin. For 12 years, I've sat up there as one of you, and looking around the dais, there's not one person that was here during my 12 years except for the official best finance officer you got, Jennifer. I'm sorry. But I'm here to kind of question and then support. When I first got the council packet on Wednesday, item 37 was clear at the bottom, which means it's 9:30 now. And I read it and I says, okay. And I went to the packet and there was no document supporting the item. So I don't know what happened, but I sent an email in saying there's no supporting documents to the referral request from the council rep. So as far as the rules go, it wasn't a timely referral request because the packet came out on Wednesday. On Thursday, there was an addition of a note to the council reps. I don't know if you have it in your packet or not, but just based on that alone, the rules under Council Rule 8.1 state that first the mayor has the right to not accept the item as a agenda for the council. And based on the fact that there was no supporting document, to tell you wisely why you can make a good decision on this, it should never been on the council agenda. The other concern I have with this is that even though you made mention that we don't air personnel issues here, tonight has had at least 3 or 4 of them that have slipped in or comments have been made. And I've got the history of the 12 years I was on the council with people who have spoke tonight have an agenda item or an issue or a grudge against the city manager, be it the present one or the past one. And I think that's just, this whole thing, if you vote to support this tonight, it's just going to open up a can of worms, and it's already started. You can feel it. If there's a petition going around, who started it? If the person who complained to the council rep that implemented the request for the referral, why aren't they here speaking? Where's the document from that person? So I urge you to just reject this and go on being the great city that we are, I applaud all of you for being what you are and for what you've been doing. I want to just tell you one thing and then I'll shut up. For 10 years, I was a complaint officer at the post office. And if you don't think that's I've had 5 bypass heart surgery, I've had a stroke, 3 stents. You want to hear about my cataracts or my hip, but it's a stressful job that you serve, and you have to take the good with the once in a while bad item. And I think an angry citizen or a person coming up to all of you, at some point you're going to lose your cool. And not once, while people were yelling at me at the post office, did I ever lose my cool unless somebody started swearing at me. And then the conversation was over. So I appreciate you rejecting this item and going on with the great job that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. And I did want to quickly, since I know you brought up the question, the referral was submitted within the time frame of by ordinance of when we would include this by policy. I did not have it originally included in the packet. That was an oversight. So including it later, it was included on time or sent on time. Just once you brought that up, I realized we hadn't included the supporting document, so we at least got it in there for that. And by policy, I've tried to follow working with everyone that if you do have a referral that you've submitted on time, I may discuss it with you to see if that's the referral as we want to submit it, but trying to hold to ensuring that we follow that policy working with the group. So.
Again, Paul Ryder, 5313 Caraway Lane. When I served on the council, we had 5 department heads, but we had one who was kind of the first among equals. It was Dick McAllister. And he managed things like a city manager. We just didn't call him city manager. And I was acting mayor for a while, and we would have our meetings, and Dick would organize what we would talk about, but all the department heads had input. But we did have what the equivalent of a city manager, and that was Dick McAllister. And the reason we had him, because he was trained to do a job that a city like this needs to have done. Now Danny's doing a good job, but he's not trained like the city administrator. And anyone can run and get elected mayor, but not everyone is trained to run a city the way it has to be run. So a city our size really benefits from having a city manager, a city administrator, or a first among equals. And this city has worked very well since I've been here, the 56 years I've been here. This city's been run very well. We did not have a full-time mayor till John Cruz decided that he wanted a full-time job. But so that's, you're a full-time mayor because of that historical fact. But there's been a lot of discussion. When I was involved in city government, there was a lot of discussion about not having a full-time mayor. And that would make it easier for people like me who have a full-time job to be part of the city government. Now I was, because I got permission from the university to release time. But when I was acting mayor, I just was simply doing 3 jobs. So you need an organization with someone who understands all the ins and outs of things, and the mayor can help, and the mayor is a leader, and the mayor is accountable. But I think it would be a big mistake to assume that you can elect a mayor that's going to have the equivalent experience to do what a city administrator can do. Now, there may be some personnel issues, and I'm not referring to any of that, but just organizationally, I think it's very important to have good, trained people. We had Dick, now we have Ron. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Anyone else for public comment on this item tonight? Name and address, please.
Chad Walsh, 6701 Strayer Road. So, I have no professional dealings with Ron. As many of you probably have no idea, Ron and I grew up in the same town in Northeast Iowa. I don't want to be here speaking out on this, but I don't even know what Ron Gaines' day-to-day job is, but I have reached out to him in May of 2022, or May 22nd of 2023, with some concerns with city staff, and Since that point, I've rezoned the residential district to allow salons. I had issues with the city sewer that the city contractor put in. Came up here and complained about city staff having the ability to have me spend $17,000 on architectural drawings for a addition that they told me in the first couple minutes of the meeting that that's a project that I can't do. I reached out to Ron.
Just really quick, Chad, if I can. This is to discuss the position, not a specific person in the role. So we need to keep it to the role and the appropriateness of the role.
So I guess my point with that is that person in that role supposed to be communicating with citizens when there's an issue at hand? Almost 2 years ago, I reached out. I've been in public conversations multiple times here on this stage, and I have never gotten a follow-up. I called, I emailed, I stopped down to City Hall. So I just think that whether this role is needed or not, there needs to be some accountability for that role. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Is there anyone else for public comment tonight? Thank you, everyone. I'm going to circle back on a few things here. Just based on my time here and too, seeing there's a lot of, I think, discussion around, I think all of us who have been around here for even just the last couple of years with campaigning and those things, I've seen these conversations about discussion on this role, the appropriateness. I've heard the term thrown out multiple times about an unelected person running the city. One, to a comment that was made, I would fully support you don't want an elected official operating and running a city that has a budget of $100+ million. Regardless, we can't design these around the person. I'm very much appreciative that anyone would have faith in me to do something like that, but I will not always be in this position, and we do not want the person in an elected position being responsible for that type of organization because it could have incredibly disastrous consequences for our community. But two, having said that, to that piece about the unelected person running a city, I still retain full executive authority over this city. I approve the agenda that we bring forward. Staff could tell you sometimes annoyances when I've pulled an item or said we're not moving this forward yet because I don't think it meets the expectations of what may be supported by this council or what I've heard for concerns haven't been addressed yet. There are times when I've pushed harder than maybe staff would have liked me to on some items because I think, hey, this might be the right thing, but we have to figure out still some of the input on this. How do we run this by? Some of the concerns I've heard from both the community as well as from council. So I do think there is this assumption that that executive authority has been given up, and it has not been. I still retain full executive authority. I do set the agenda, and I will say just from my personal standpoint, I couldn't do this job if it wasn't full-time. I've spoken to a lot of mayors, and everyone will tell you there's no such thing as a part-time mayor. You may be paid part-time, but at the end of the day, you're going to be putting in 40 hours a week at minimum, regardless of whether the role is a full-time paid or not. For someone in my position, my age, my point in my career, I wouldn't be able to do this as a part-time role, maintain a full-time career, and try to raise a family and have a family at the same time. So I would say a lot of the benefit of what I've been able to do this last year, digging into the budget, getting more specifics, there's no way I could do that if it wasn't really a full-time position. Again, not to necessarily say that's the right way to be set up, but that's some of the benefits of what I've seen for how I've been able to do this role. Again, to some of the comment of feeling like maybe that authority has been taken away or it's no longer the mayor running the city, in this role, done right, it is the mayor's responsibility and obligation to make sure that what we're doing as a city, working with this body, is in line with what we're hearing from our residents. And again, it really comes to the person in the role and how they manage it, how they get involved day to day. There's a lot of leeway there. There's not really a playbook when you take this job. Essentially, legal responsibility is to run this council meeting, and beyond that, there's a lot of ambiguity about what that role is. But I will say from what I've seen is that this role does still have the executive authority, retains that. It is kind of the role of this job, as we talked about, to be the quarterback of this team, make sure that what we're doing as best as possible meets the needs of this council before it's brought forward so that we can have good constructive conversation, but also have things worked on before it gets here, but still make sure we have the full public accountability, taking input, having the public meetings. So I just wanted to take a second because I know even before our tenure here, this has been something that I've seen come up a few times, and I do understand it. As a city and having a chance to be in this a year, working with our staff, working with council, it's a difficult job. We're in the position where we're making decisions around people's livelihoods, around their properties, and decisions that impact people. And that is a big responsibility and a big obligation to our community. And I feel honored to have gotten a lot of the feedback and working with everyone. Again, in terms of any sort of concerns about how the city's being run, that's on me. That is my accountability. That is my role as the mayor to make sure we are running the city in the way that is responsible to our citizens. And again, if there are concerns, I know I try as much as I can to make the time to be able to talk with everybody, listen to all the concerns. Not always able to get back right away, and trying to work on doing better about some of that at times. But it does come down to my position in terms of if there's concerns with the executive management of the city, and responsibility on me to make sure we're addressing those concerns. So with that, just wanted to kind of set some of my thoughts from this past year being in this role, and I'll bring it back to council for discussion.
I have more to say. I'd like to hear from other people.
I have nothing to add.
I just want to add, I don't know that we need to get too far into the weeds. We need to decide if we even want to talk about this.
Well, that's
Yeah,
really
we
the
are
discussion
talking
just
about
now
it.
is
That's what I wanted to.
I'm not saying that you did, I'm just saying.
Okay, yep. Yes, just clarify this. Yep.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate everybody's comments out here. It was quite the spectrum. If you were tallying it up on 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, that's what we need to hear. That's what the public needs to hear from other public. So maybe they're not alone in their concerns, and it'll make the city staff better. It'll make the mayor position better. Make what we do make for decisions on council better. I'm asking to have a committee meeting, which is not a decision type of meeting. It's a lot of discussion to entertain the spectrum of strong mayor, strong council, which is what we have, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it's functioning that way. We didn't have always an city administrator. Go back before McAllister, go back before these gentlemen here. It's an open discussion. That's what I'm asking. I want to have the citizens air their concerns, whatever they might be, individually or in general. I don't know that I'd say, somebody mentioned about a grudge. I don't necessarily believe that. Concerns are concerns. You know, in my work as a financial planner, I hear concerns of citizens or things they have no control over. The markets, the interest rates, what the president says, what foreign countries do and say. So I listen to the concerns, and it shapes me to be a better financial planner, business analyst, and we're analyzing the city as a business here. So I'd really like to see this move forward for further discussion, which might be very similar to what we just heard. We are, I guess, getting into weeds, like Ms. Dunn had said, but personally, I think it'll make the whole function of the city better to have more opportunity for citizens to weigh in and hear what they have to say. Can't hurt. Can't hurt at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any additional thoughts or conversation from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm entirely clear where we're going with this referral, and the only reason I say that is I heard an or that wasn't in the referral. So it was to discuss whether we should have the city administrator or. So I want to make sure I'm understanding what we're voting on. Is the conversation before us whether we should have a city administrator? Or is it the or piece that was referenced at the end of the comments, first of all? But secondly, I would just say that I'm not educated enough to really understand what the ramifications would be if we didn't have the city administrator. In my experience, I can give an anecdotal story from just this last week where I was traveling, I was out of town, and I reached out to the mayor after I had a concern brought forward from a resident. And I'd spoken with Director Schrage and had heard the great efforts that our staff had already undertaken on this particular concern. But the mayor had the opportunity to take it a step further and actually go out and have a conversation with one of these residents. And that really moved the needle for that particular neighborhood to say, wow, this city actually cares about what my concern was. Not that the city staff didn't care, but we took it a step further, and someone else that was the elected official was able to come out there and have a conversation. I think that's great. If we have a part-time mayor and we don't have a city administrator, I don't know that that's really feasible or even possible. So I guess that is one concern. Overall, I'm not against having a discussion on it. I've heard the same anecdotal information that there's a petition out, and I have no doubt that that petition exists. I've not seen it. I've not seen the literature behind it. I don't know where that stands today. So we may see that coming down the pipeline regardless of whether this council chooses to take this referral up or not, and that's fine. But I want to make sure I'm understanding specifically what it is that we're voting on, whether it's the person in the chair or whether to vacate the chair. Because I think that decidedly could change the perception on this vote one way or the other. And again, I think I'm all for having the discussion publicly. But to your point, Mr. Mayor, it's a fine line on the personnel side, and that's something we've all had to educate ourselves on here in this last couple of weeks, right, wrong, or otherwise, right? So I'm not really clear in a committee meeting beyond the public being able to rightfully express their support or non-support of that position. I'm not sure what more conversation we can have on the topic. So I guess it just feels very gray and muddy, and that's I don't know if a more robust referral is what we need here. I don't know if further discussion needs to occur. I'm not sure what we're looking for, but I'm struggling one way or the other on how to go on this one.
So just to answer your first question, I would say just for what we have in front of us for the referral would be really reviewing the structure of the position, having the position as a general position, and then the directors reporting to the mayor directly. So it'd really be a referral to discussion on the function of the role.
And I guess to Attorney Rogers, or I don't know who can answer this question. If we were to do that, if we were to say, yes, that's the direction we want to go, that's majority of us can say yes, and that's it,
well,
or no?
There's ordinance changes that would have to take place, of course, but council created the city administrator position. It can uncreate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, I think taking Councilman Lada's point, I think that's the struggle that a lot of us are having, is that mixing of the personnel issue and whether or not we're going to have just sort of a general discussion of the merits of this type of or form of government. And that's the problem I have with the referral. And the reason is I've always considered the referral being a council member would identify a problem. They would say, I think this problem exists. I would like staff, whomever, to look into potential solutions along these lines. So example, in this case, a referral would be what's wrong with this model? And not personnel issues, but what's wrong with this model? And then we can maybe decide on the merits of taking further time. Everybody's here's time. Everybody that's watching their time to discuss it. But I have yet to hear of the specific indictment of the model that leads us here for the referral, which is why I was requesting the specifics as opposed to just let's discuss it. By way of example, the referral just says consider the merits of. I could equally do a referral that says consider the merits of having sanitary sewer in the city. It seems self-evident. We understand why it's important, but why waste the time discussing it unless I identify specific problems with the sewer system? So without the specifics, and I think to Mr. Lada's point, maybe a more refined referral, I'm not in favor of advancing this. So.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Hey, Counselor. Yep.
Yeah, I think, I didn't craft the referral here, but the specifics in my mind are what I was trying to reference earlier, that we have, effectively, we are still a form of government, strong mayor, strong council, by the will of the people. That can only change through a referendum vote if you move the method of governance, city manager, city council. That has to go to a referendum. What the city council did, as you heard Mr. Rogers say, was create a position that has now begun to function as city manager, without checking the will of the people. We never had a referendum to change our form of government, but as we saw, many policies have moved those over. One of the things we referenced a couple meetings ago was, okay, the discretion here is in this position. It is in effect city manager. That's why everybody uses it interchangeably. They keep saying city administrator, city manager, that only happens by a referendum vote, which is why that came up. So that to me is the specificity that we're looking for is, did we, meaning the city at large 12 years ago, make a mistake in our form of government do we need to analyze that and see whether we should continue with that? And I'm not at all disparaging our neighbors in Waterloo, but they do have an elected full-time mayor and city administrator. He has supplementary staff, as I understand it, to execute those expert level things, but they get away with it with a city almost twice our size. We're spending $300,000 in our budget for that position. I'm talking about, does that sidestep state code around changing our form of government? Should we continue it? That's been my reference at goal setting the last 3 years. So that's why I'm in favor of talking about it as a city and figuring out, is this the direction we want to go forward? And if that discussion in itself would be our discovery, to find out, yes, this is the direction we should go. And for the Cedar Falls of 2023 or 2025 or 2030 or 2050, this is the direction we should go, and we should craft it properly and move in that direction. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor.
To help clarify some components of what I read, by virtue of employment law, we'd have to remove any reference to personnel-specific discussion, correct?
You mean like if we were in that discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because there's procedures and so on. Laws. I'm looking at, again, the simplicity of this referral. There doesn't need to be, I don't think, a big document. Consider the merits of having the city department directors, managers, whatever you want to call them, report to the mayor, and it should say council, because we're sitting up here and we would hear reports, and not having a city administrator or manager. It's very simplistic, and it's designed to get public feedback. That's what it's after. It's very simple. And again, I revert back to what I said earlier. I think it'll make the city better, all the components of the city better, the staff better, and council have a better perspective of what the citizens are saying, what their concerns are. So consider the merits. And as we heard, a lot of different viewpoints of merit here.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Counselor. Any other further discussion? Thoughts from council? All right, so seeing none, we'll go to a voice vote. So the referral to consider the merits of having the city department directors report directly to the mayor and not having a city administrator or city manager. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
That motion does not carry. So, thank you, everyone. And last item here, motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.